All right, I'm going to kick us off. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining for the first PCSB board meeting of the 2020-21 school year. My name is Rick Cruz, and I serve as chair of the DC Public Charter School Board. Joining me this evening are my fellow board members, our vice chair, Saba Beretta, Steve Bumbaugh, Naomi Shelton, Leah Crucy, Ricardo Ganjum, and Jim Sandman. And for her first ever monthly board meeting, making her premiere appearance, our new executive director, Dr. Michelle Walker-Davis. Michelle, welcome. We're excited to have you. Lots of virtual applause. As a note for everyone joining us this evening, there'll be a video option available to all of our board members who I think are all taking advantage of it, and for all of our presenters that are participating this evening. It's been an unusual start to the school year, to say the least. Our public charter schools have been working hard to orient new students, getting them set up with technology, onboarding new teachers and staff, all the while for many helping parents finalize their enrollment paperwork. These, I know, feel like big Herculean tasks at times. So I'd like to start off today's meeting by saying thank you to all of the school leaders, teachers, students, and families for all the work that they've been doing to kick off this school year. It's exciting that students are back learning, meeting their teachers, and seeing their classmates. I know this isn't how any of us would have planned, or even if we were planning for it, we were not the way we wanted to start the new school year. But the good news is that we were able to successfully reopen schools, whether in person, virtually, or a mixture of both. And to provide just a small window into this, we're going to kick off tonight's meeting with 5 new schools, the new LEAs that have opened this fall in DC. 5 schools that recruited, welcomed new families, trained new staff, planned everything virtually, while also preparing new facilities to welcome their communities, as some of them have begun already this year. I'm going to begin this evening by asking representatives from the first of these schools, Girls Global Academy, to join us on screen. Bree, if you wouldn't mind unmuting the representatives from the Girls Global team. If you are all unmuted, Karen, Shayne, and Jason, if you want to start off by stating your name, and then maybe just start off by telling us a little bit about how the school year is going for you, and most importantly for your students.
Sure. Hi, I am Karen Venable-Croft, and I am the executive director here at Girls Global Academy. I say here because I'm in our building.
Awesome.
And Shayne Swift, our principal, is here as well, and so is Jason Mellen. I don't know if they were added to the call or not. So I just wanted to be able to highlight a couple of things that aren't specifically about our school, but definitely relate to our school. So we are in the celebration of the centennial year of the 19th Amendment that protected women's right to vote in the United States. And so because people advocated for this right and used their partnerships to get what was needed to be heard, it's really a historical vote and celebration year. And we at Girls Global Academy continue to find avenues and ways for our students and staff to be voices that make a difference in their school community and global community, just like those that advocated for the right for women to vote. So we, as you stated, Rick, we are in a very different and unusual time, and like those that advocated for the right to voice, we are also advocating for our students to have all they need to be successful under not so normal circumstances. Although we are in school in a virtual posture, it's still not so normal for our staff and our students. So we're just here just to provide a brief overview of what we've been doing. We have successfully opened our school. We had a virtual ribbon cutting ceremony. Those that came did so in a very safe and socially distant way. It wasn't the ribbon cutting ceremony that we wanted, but we had one to celebrate the idea that we were going to one day physically open our doors to our students. And so about our program, our model was always intentionally designed to be a one-to-one technology school, even before the pandemic happened. And so what we're doing now is just really stepping into that and realizing all that technology really can do to bring learning to life for our students, and how our students and staff are able to make connections through our pillars of sisterhood, scholarship, service, and safety, and just really trying to break the distance that maybe a computer would have in terms of making relationships for our students. What we've been successful at this time is, number one, opening up our school. We have enrolled students and families that committed to us. All of our students had devices on the first day of school, and that's a really big feat when you were delivering those devices in a pandemic, and families weren't certain about, you know, coming out in public. There was a student that was the very first time that she was out in public when she picked up her device for school, and she was very excited to do so because she was eager to join our inaugural class. We surveyed our students, and 87% of them identified the virtual learning has started successfully for them, and some of them just really want to ensure that there are possibilities eventually for them to be in the building, because they really like the aspect of face-to-face, but still agree that virtual learning is successful for them. Jason has set up a daily virtual help desk for our parents and students to come on a daily basis throughout the day if they're virtually lost or confused or need some assistance, and that's been really successful. So we're using technology to support our students in this way. We started the summer at the beginning of the school year with a digital exchange with students from Morocco and other areas of the United States to do a digital exchange program. We conducted our baseline assessments online. Shayne Swift can tell you the difficulty of being able to ensure that, that our students were still receiving the services that they needed, and still maintaining the integrity of assessments while they were at home. And then our students are continuously being in dialogue with their teachers and peers about issues that matter to them. In this setting, we produced a way for our students to feel comfortable so that they know that their voices are heard, and that happened almost instantly in the first week of school. Virtual instruction is challenging. I'm not going to say that it's the easiest. It's still challenging, but we have not stopped, and our GGA team and students are continuing to maximize the experiences that they have through the technology that we've provided every single student.
Erin, a really quick question. I know y'all are really busy this week, but you're welcoming, you know, our first girls only high school, first year opening. I know from the application process that you and Shayne bring so much experience and passion around AP and IB and all of this expertise. One of the things that really resonated with me when you were planning the school and when you applied is combining all of that with this sense of sisterhood. How does that convey in a virtual environment?
I think I was on mute.
Oh.
I'll start with that, and then Shayne can definitely provide her perspective on it as well. One of the ways that we worked on, and we said it when we were asking for you all to vote for us to open up our school and fully charter us. We started with making sure that our students were a part of an orientation. It's very difficult to just throw students in and just expect them to be able to understand school and what we wanted. So we call it the GGA way. And so we're just constantly working on sisterhood and explaining to them that it may not come now. And it's a yet. It's really about the power of yet and letting them understand and know that they can make mistakes, that they may get virtually lost, that they may not understand the material from the baseline assessments. But if they stick with us, we are going to provide them with the supports that they need so that they are ready for when they're taking those AP and IB classes, that they can be ready. So it's about building trust. It's about creating that circle of trust and knowing that they have us and others to lean on in their sisterhood. Shayne.
Yeah, I'd just add to that. We are constantly reiterating like what our online expectations are every day, and we've clearly defined what sisterhood should look like in a virtual environment. What does it look like in the chat? What does it look like when you unmute yourself and provide constructive feedback to a classmate? And we use our community meetings on Wednesdays, which are school-wide, to continue to support students through that process of what sisterhood, scholarship, service, and safety look like, even in a virtual way.
Thank you, Karen and Shayne. Board members, any questions that you have, anything that the Girls Global team, the GGA team, can expound upon before we let them get back to the work that they're engaged in?
Sure. Just a quick question, 2 parts. What does your family engagement look like in this virtual environment? And the same for your community engagement. And then the next question after that would be around your enrollment and how you all are doing with that.
I'll start with our community engagement, and then Jason can speak about enrollment, and then Shayne can also speak about family and community engagement because she's heavily involved in that. So our families have been involved from the beginning, from when we were doing face-to-face sessions with our families about our school opening and what they wanted to see. And then when we turned into a virtual posture, we still have them coming. Our student support services coordinator works with our families every other week in sessions where they make their voices heard about the support services that we're providing for students. We also have focus groups that our families are involved in. So it's focus groups around the services that we would provide and reopening our school in December, which is at the end of our first trimester, because we're on trimesters. So it's really important for us that we're constantly engaging our families in surveys, focus groups, Shayne doing discovery sessions and continuing those discovery sessions, because high school is like elementary. It's like middle school, that you don't stop just because your student is older. Families still want to be involved in that process. And we just recently begun the process of having our parents advocate for creating our very first parent-teacher-student organization. So we're in the throes of getting that up and running, and having parents be excited about starting to join our board for the first time. So for us, it's the very first time that we're going through this process of involving our parents and community grandparents, aunts that are the custodial guardians of their students, be involved in this process of what we're calling community engagement. Shayne or Jason,
Yeah, I'll jump in and add in terms of community engagement. So we do have a steering committee to guide our pathways in engineering and business, and the stakeholders basically comprise 2 college professors from one from each pathway, folks that are actually in the industry, as well as parent representative, and we will shortly bring on a student representative as well, just to continue to guide our work on what engineering and business should look like at the school level, so that we stay up to date and keep up to date with industry trend.
And I'll jump in about enrollment. We currently have 81% enrolled, which in the middle of a pandemic feels like a good number. That equates to 65 students out of the 80 that was the target for this year. We still have 8 applications that are pending and out there, and we've been following up with families almost daily with those particular families to get them enrolled and through the process. And so we heard late last week that 12,000 families that are still unenrolled or unfinally enrolled at schools, and would love to get our hands on that list to be able to talk with families that might still need a place, because we have a few spots left.
Thank you all for that update.
Excellent.
You're welcome.
Any other, Leah, are you leaning in for a question, or are you reading?
I'm leaning in for a question, thank you. And thank you for all of this. It sounds like you mentioned that you're considering something at the end of this term to bring students into the school. I'm interested in hearing more of what you're thinking around that, but then at the same time, before that happens, how you are supporting students socially through extracurricular activities, whether in person or virtually.
Sure. So it's a part of our opening plan. So we always intended that we were going to do a slow rollout for our students. Starting virtually. Originally, we thought we were going to have all of our students come back 100% face-to-face, and because of the decision of the city, we decided that was not the best way to open school. We surveyed our teachers and we surveyed our families for that. But what we're thinking for our opening for is just a typical hybrid schedule where students would be able to come back to school twice per week. If we're able to have more days out of the week, because our building supports our students all of our students being on campus at the same time, that is what we would advocate for. We just need to have that full conversation with our families to ensure that all of our families would like to have a 100% of their students on campus simultaneously, but our building can accommodate them. We have enough staff members to accommodate that sort of back to school, a physical back to school setting. What was the second question?
It was around sharing more about what you are doing to support students for kind of extracurriculars right now, whether virtual or if it's all possible in person.
Sure. Yes. So we spent all of August and all of September just ensuring that we had our virtual learning and we're consistent and predictable about our expectations in virtual learning. And so we actually are starting our enrichment activities in October. So that was a little bit more of a slow, and that's for us, we thought we were just going to be able to start it immediately. So that's a little bit more of a slower rollout for us. So we're starting those activities in October. And we talked about like the different partnerships that we were working on from before, engineering partnerships, empowerment, female empowerment partnerships, and then just, some of the partnerships with sign language and creative writing, different things like that, things that girls are interested in, art club. So we reached out to our students as well and asked them what was it that they were interested in doing, and those are the activities that we are going to start with in October. But before we started, we just, like Shayne mentioned, we just wanted to make sure that we had our virtual online etiquette together prior to putting our students in with community members that would be supporting us in sponsoring those activities.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank
I
you
just had
all.
one follow-up
Oh,
question on
sorry.
that real quick, Rick.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask a little bit about what are you doing to address the mental health needs of your students at this time?
Shayne, do you want to answer that?
Sure. We are finishing up our universal screeners this week for social emotional, and we also have a wellness specialist hired who meets with students either individually or in small groups. And in addition to that, our student support services team does whole school well checks with students just to check in and see how everybody's doing.
Are there any trends you can speak to on that front by any chance?
I don't know if I can speak to any trends at this point in time, but I think just the management of virtual learning is just something that we're continuing to work with our students on and supporting them through daily tasks. Self-management, I would say, would be the biggest need we've identified thus far in helping students manage all that they have in front of them.
Thank you.
All right. Well, if there aren't any additional questions for the GGA team, I'm going to move on to Capitol Village. But Karen, Shayne, Jason, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for all the work that you're doing, and we'll hope to visit in some form this fall.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the evening. Thank you.
Thanks. Brianna, do we have Monica Green unmuted?
Yes. Hi there.
All right. Oh, there we go. Looking for you on my screen, Monica. Thanks for joining.
Good to see you guys. Thanks for having us.
Good to see you as well.
And I
Want to give us
also
Oh, sorry. You've got other members of the team?
I have my board chair here, but he may have to pop off. He has another meeting. I'm not.
Okay. Well, we'll let you get started. And again, just would love to hear how things have kicked off and how you're bringing students together and what the experience has been the last several weeks.
Thank you. Just hello to the board. It's good to see everyone's faces virtually. I do, I'm always very excited to share about our school and how we're doing. So I'll keep this super short, but I do want to run down a couple of things that, what's going on at Capitol Village, some successes, some areas that we're working through as a team as well. So, we are super excited, of course, to, get to know all of our students. We have 52 fifth graders and sixth graders with us virtually every day. We're very excited to have a very small, intimate, but powerful community of learners, and also a talented staff and leadership working with them every day. Our students on a day-to-day basis, they are joining us virtually via, our platform online. Our students are currently working through expeditions. The fifth graders are learning about the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. They're reading a story, Esperanza Rising, and also learning how to create advocacy speeches for human rights. And then our sixth graders are in a unit around Greek mythology, and they will learn about the characteristics of a hero in literature, and then apply that to modern day heroes here in our community, and honor our community's modern day heroes. So those are their first expeditions, and they are already getting that started right now. They started the first couple of weeks in community building, learning about our village values. So such values like self-awareness, knowing myself and the power within me, social awareness, how we can take care of ourselves and our communities and our world. So, the sort of blend of both academic rigor, but also this really intense focus on social emotional wellness, which in this day and age and what's going on now is super important. Students also get to have some fun. They have what we call studio classes. So they take art online. We have an amazing art teacher that comes in, and they're currently working on faces, drawing faces, fitness classes where the students are actually causing havoc in their homes, moving around and doing crazy stuff, exercising, improv classes with Washington Improv Theater, debate with Washington Urban Debate League. And so just some fun stuff, happening throughout the day. We are an EL education school, so, we are definitely all about real world and sort of real world instruction. And so that's the kind of stuff that you'll see, but you'll also see crew. So our students meet twice a day. In the beginning, they do a quick crew check-in with their mentor. And then at around 12, they do the longer crew session where they're learning about social emotional wellness as well. So that's kind of what they're doing now. Some of the support that we've been giving our families include Chromebooks, of course. Every student has Chromebooks. A Chromebook. If students needed support with internet, we're giving out hotspots or Comcast internet service, whichever the parents wanted. We have an IT person on site once a week, so parents and students can come in and troubleshoot any issues. We give meals away on Fridays for the week, meals that are actually really good from Luncheras, which is a smaller vendor that's like walking distance from our school right down the street. And we just started a partnership with Life Enhancement Services to provide family therapy to students and families that need that support. I'm really proud of our student support. We're proud of our special education programs. We have families that have been spreading the word about us, and we're really, really proud of that. But also, some other successes. We have our newly renovated building at 705 Edgewood Northeast. So you should come by, swing by, see the new plates. We're open from 8 to 4. Some of our staff actually teach from the classrooms. Our students are at home, but some of our staff, want to utilize the space to teach from from the building. We are excited about how we have modeled our virtual learning. So just as we planned with our in-person instruction, our virtual classrooms have multiple adults. So you'll have a teacher who is teaching, you have another teacher who might be maybe managing a smaller group or just like private chatting with students or helping with the tech aspects of video conferencing, which is a thing. And just those kinds of being able to have more than one adult in the space has been really successful. Our students are engaged. We had 100% attendance on our first day, and we've continued to keep up a rather high percentage of attendance. And our teachers call students when they're not there, and they text them and they look for them. And so that's been something that's been very successful. We have a world-class staff and a world-class leadership and a world-class board. So we're just excited about our progress this far.
Thanks, Monica.
Thanks.
Board, any questions?
So I'll start with the same set of questions around community engagement and family engagement and how that's going so far.
Sure, thank you. Parents have always been our partners from the beginning. We utilized parents and community feedback in the development of our model. We did several focus groups leading up to the year, especially when it was apparent that we would have to make changes to how we opened. And parents were very, very, very clear about what they wanted. Parents wanted options. They wanted to be able to, at some point, come in if some parents wanted, and some parents wanted to stay home. They just wanted to have the option to make that decision for their family. And so just as we opened the year, we continued. We put out a survey, I think maybe the second week, and just continue to just get their feedback throughout. Our families are very vocal, and they take seriously the fact that they're founding families, and they let us know when they can recommend changes. We have back to school coming up on September 30th, where we're going to sort of show them what their students' day looks like, and take them through some of the platforms that we're using. Our counselor runs a support group for both families and students. So it's a grant that we received, and the support group is around coping skills and stress just in the light of the COVID-19 pandemic. And so we had our first meeting with families last week, and we just had families just coming and learning about, talking about the stress that we're living with right now. And also the counselor went over some strategies for success, and then we will also do the same thing with students. And so we're just really excited about our community of families. It's really a sort of a strong community where families feel like they can ask questions. They can always pick up the phone and call us. And so we take pride in that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Monica, how are you envisioning bringing students back to campus at this point?
Thanks for that. Yeah, we actually, and I don't know if Chris is on. Chris, I don't know if he have his mic unmuted. Chris Purdy? Maybe not. Okay, well, we have he's our board chair. So we have our governance committee put together a reopening committee. And the reopening committee is just, oh, there he is. Go ahead, I wanted you to give voice to our plans for opening and reopening committee.
Yeah, hey everybody. Actually our reopening committee is meeting right now. So as soon as I'm done talking with you all, we're going to jump over and meet as a board about that. Our thought is to kind of delay an in-person opening until at least at the end of the first quarter, but to kind of reassess each month and see where we are with numbers and what other schools are doing, and things like that. And we wanted to, as a board, make that decision, but not alone. So we're inviting parents to this reopening committee meeting and soliciting teacher input as well. So really trying to bring as many voices as possible to this really difficult decision.
Do you anticipate some guidelines or some level of decision today, or?
No, I think today we're just going to be meeting and kind of laying out the schedule. We have gone back and forth about whether we use the phase structure that DC has as a guideline. But I think what we're going to be doing is making those types of that schedule today. We did kind of wait until the middle of August to make the final call, and then we've used that the past 6 weeks or so to observe the situation and see where the health numbers are right now on that.
Thanks so much, Chris. We definitely, it's great to have staff and parents. I think just living in the reality of virtual instruction, it's important to us that we're able to hear the voices of those who are actually, doing the work day to day, and also parents who are, trying to balance that day to day as well.
Well, it's great to hear the work that the board is doing alongside staff and families. So thanks for doing that, Chris, along with the rest of the board. You guys have more important meetings to tend to than ours. So unless there are any other questions, we've got a few other schools we want to hear from this evening. All right. Monica, Chris, thank you for joining. Good luck in the next couple of hours for your meeting and the next few weeks. And we look forward to visiting in some way this fall.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Thanks. Have a good night. Bree, I think we're going to call up the social justice team. And I think that's Myron, Brandon, Reggie, and Michelle.
Hello, everyone.
Hey, Myron.
Good to see you all, as always.
Good to see you guys.
Thank you. Good evening, PCSB, and welcome, Dr. Walker Davis. My name is Myron Long, and I am the founder and executive director of the Social Justice School. And each day I have this privilege to serve, and I'm thankful for your support and believe that our city needs a school that is rooted in social justice and that I am suitable to be its leader. So August 31st, 2020, we opened our doors and made history, literally. We launched a new innovative school against incredible odds. We launched our new school in a new building in the midst of a pandemic, supported ourselves, our scholars, and our families during an uprising for racial and social justice. And probably almost most important, we welcomed our youngest scholar activist, my 5-week-old son, Glorious Jaw, into the world. And we opened despite these needs, in addition to the traditional odds of starting a new school. And I'm super excited to share our progress thus far. So first, I'm just in complete awe of our founding staff. We are a community of quirky, anti-racist, anti-sexist, anti-ableist, and anti-xenophobic educators who are really passionate about supporting young Washingtonians in their own liberation. And we launched our school with a few key priorities this year. We wanted to make sure that our scholars felt known, loved, and academically challenged. And we designed our school in line with our our commitment to our values of iteration and building with and not for our community. And so as we were designing what reopening might look like, or opening in our case, we conducted empathy interviews with our families to better understand their needs. And we built a hybrid model and a digital instructional model that was rooted in their needs. So at the Social Justice School, all of our instruction occurs through our virtual platform. So this is for students who are remote and in person. And we offer a limited amount of seats for in-person instruction for scholars whose parents are essential workers, scholars who receive specialized instruction, and scholars who were significantly disengaged during distance learning last year. We made that decision in response to the needs of our parents and the needs of our teachers as well. And so our scholar activists are divided into 3 cohorts across 3 different classrooms. Some of them come each day on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, and some only come on Tuesday and Thursdays. These scholars make up about 20% of our enrollment. And on Wednesday, all of our scholar activists learn from home, and we had to go through several safety training with sessions and consulted with health practitioners. Thank you for that support, PCSB, prior to launching our school. And when all of our scholars who did come in, we did many parent-student orientations, so they really knew our expectations and understood the rationale for why we were being so precautious during these trial and turbulent times. And so we started our year with Cruz, which is our social and emotional structure and culture. And with Grace, we began building relationships with our scholar activists and their families through one-to-one calls, family orientation, meetups, and home visits. We've done several already. We recently launched our full content so our scholars can be academically challenged. And currently our scholar activists are learning about human rights, the hero's journey, prisms, and the difference between equality and equity. And our daily attendance rate is over 90%, and we are pushing for 95% in the coming weeks. We are humbled and thankful that we had the opportunity to provide technology for all of our scholars, along with hotspots and data connectivity to all who need them. This being despite a single site, small new school. And now that the city will support families to access the internet for instruction, we look forward to understanding how our budgets might be replenished so we can serve our scholars in other different ways. We continue to engage our community through engagement-based efforts like the one we held a few weeks ago in Brooklyn Manor. So we have the opportunity to partner with the Rodham Institute for Social Justice at GW and the Ward 5 Mutual Aid Network to provide over 100 meals, masks, and ice cream to community members in Ward 5. And we are also continuing our student recruitment. We're currently 80% enrolled, and over 97% of the families who enroll with us this spring and summer are attending, the difference between 1 or 2 students. And we have multiple families considering enrollment over the next few weeks. And we are in a strong financial position as we have enrolled a significantly larger at-risk student population. And we've raised almost an additional $100K in additional philanthropy. And so we're set to end the year on budget and with more than 100 days of cash on hand. And again, I'm super proud of our team, what we have done in the past 3 weeks. We are excited to make history and support our scholars, their families, in our Ward 5 community, and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. You covered a lot in that opening statement, but I'm sure we might have some other questions. Board members?
Myron, thank you so much for that. Because you're one of our few schools that are having in-person learning, I would just like to hear how that's going, how your staff feels about it, how have you been able to support them? Because I think that's been where a lot of questions have been, is how staff feels about going back in.
Definitely. I mean, that's the reason why we decided, thank you, Saba, that's the reason why we decided for all of our instruction to go through our platform. even if students are in the building. So when you come inside of our classroom, you'll see about 5 students in each classroom, and the teacher is still teaching their instruction synchronously to students who are at school and to students at home. And then there's another teacher in the room who's working with students through the platform during like small group instruction if they need support, and helping students there. And then we actually assigned administrators to each cohort as well to provide that additional support. So I think what we have tried to do is to eliminate some of the concern about, teachers and students having contact with us, because at the end of the day, we care most importantly about the safety and well-being of our school community. So that was our #1 driver and concern. Some of the other things that we did to prepare and support staff members is we've had the opportunity to do several trainings and several clear digital proficiency look-fors. And also we do rubrics that walk through each day around our COVID response plan to make sure that we are meeting those expectations as well. Overall, families have been super excited. We've had students who, previously were just kind of poking in a class and then kind of poking out, and who are now like fully engaged, super shining inside of our class. And we're really excited about that as well. And so we still continue to have our weekly PD on Wednesdays, and we do our kid talk, and we have the opportunity to problem solve around certain students and any challenges they might be facing as well.
Thank you. And then just one last question. What's the empathy interview? What is that?
Yeah, so whenever we, as a school, we see ourselves as community designers, and one of the first steps in design thinking is empathy interviews. And so, the schedule that we have right now is probably like version 10.5. And so we gave some opportunities for staff and for families to give input on our schedule. Because at first we were going to really go 100% virtual, but our families were like, some of our families really needed the support. We have parents who are nurses, and they're like, I got to go to work every day. And so I think we really wanted to be responsive to their needs while also being safe. And so that's why we made sure that, despite the recommendations for, 12 students or people to be inside of a space, we actually thought that it was more strategic to have a smaller group of students in a space at one time, just because we thought that if there were more students in that space, it just increases the likelihood for more interaction between the adults and the young people there. We wanted to limit that interaction as much as possible.
Myron and Sandman, have you had an opportunity to incorporate the events of the past few months into the learning experience of your scholars?
Oh, great question, Jim. I mean, that's what we do. That's at the heart of our instructional model. And so we have been doing that both in Cruz, in our Liberation Design Lab. And so our Liberation Design Lab is our social justice makerspace. And right now our young people are grappling with this question of what is liberation, what is equality, and what is equity. And so we've definitely been taking in real world examples. We sent home liberation design kits to all of our scholars so that they have the opportunity to still engage in that problem solving, STEM, creative, and freedom dreaming work at home as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Myron, Reginald, Brandon, Michelle, I just want to applaud you for co-architecting the schedule with your families. It's so unusual to see schools engaging parents in these sorts of critical decisions. And I think many of us have observed that when you do that sort of authentic parent engagement, you see it leads to better academic outcomes for students. So I just wanted to sort of publicly call you out with a congratulations for modeling this.
Thank you, Steve. We appreciate that.
Any other questions?
Rick, before
Reggie?
you transition, I just wanted to ask Myron and team if you could just amplify what, if any, pain points you had in the process, pain points related to being a new school, or pain points related to doing what you're doing in the midst of COVID as well. And it's really to inform our support and our process as a board with new schools.
Definitely. I mean, I'll continue to say this. Single site, new school, equals essentially like smaller enrollment, less funding, and less human capital with the same expectations, right? And so all of us are wearing multiple hats. And so it's caregiver, instructional leader, health expert, attendance specialist, family engagement. We do have a family engagement specialist, but we all help with that as well. And so I think some larger schools and larger networks, have, whole reopening teams, for example, or whole attendance teams, for example, and we're just not there yet as an organization. And so that has definitely been some of the challenges. I think that some of our scholar activists and families, there were a lot of tech issues as well, and platform proficiency. And so, there have been many instances where we've had to FaceTime families to support them with the technology, or either do home visits to support them as well. And I think our young people, they're middle school, and middle school is that super social time. And so they really, really want to see each other. And so it's been hard for them to be at lunch and not really be able to like fully connect in the same way in which they would if they were in person. But thankful to our family engagement specialists, we're planning a couple of social distance meetups. One actually this Saturday, so if you want to come, let me know. And then we have several ones the rest of through October as well. But any other member of the team, if you'd like to speak to any of the challenges or pain points, feel free.
Brendan?
I think the one thing I would just like to amplify, and maybe this is just specific to the pandemic, is just making sure to keep teachers' voice central to all things that you do. Of course, with any organization, like, you're only as strong as the members of the team. And so a lot of the learning that we've had to do is how do we, in the same way that we champion parent voices, also champion teachers' voices, to make sure that they're feeling that we're building with them and not for them as well, because they're integral to the structure of our school. So, I mean, that's definitely a big learning. It's been a pain point in some instances, because of course, when teachers had to, we had a discussion about coming back into the building, there was definitely some concern. But I think the fact that we continuously put their health and their safety at the forefront, that has really kept them invested in the school.
Thank you both for sharing.
Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Walker-Davis.
So one thing that I would add, Myron touched on technology, and I think what the pandemic has showed us is that there's definitely a digital divide in our city, and a lot of the tech issues that we've had to deal with and help our families with have dealt with digital literacy. So things that are mainly like, you have too many tabs open that uses a lot of your memory, your computer's going to slow down. Things of that nature. So navigating technology platforms, passwords, things like that. And I think one way the city might be able to support is if there's a virtual help desk that parents could call. I think that would be a big asset.
Thank you. That's a great suggestion. Thank you all for coming out. I know the last thing you wanted to do at 7 o'clock is spend time with us, but we really appreciate it. And to Michelle's point, there's a lot we're learning from your experiences in particular. So thank you again for joining, and we look forward to visiting this fall.
Thank you all.
Thanks. Have a good evening.
All right. Take care.
Brianni, next up, I believe, is the iDream team. I think I see Janine.
Yep. Hi,
there you are. I'm trying to find you in amongst the squares. Do you want to kick it off for the team and see who else is here? Tell us who else is here with you.
Yes, absolutely. We're all here. Hello. It's good to see you all again. Thank you for inviting us to share what's going on with all of us in this challenging time. We are the iDream PCS team, and just wanted to share very quickly that in the midst of this pandemic, we continue to live our core values of relationships, collaboration, purposeful work, and equity. And our Erin and Lensa and Matt are gonna share some highlights where you can see how we are living those values. I wish you could come and be in our beautiful space where we have walls, art murals on the walls that have images that look like the children that we serve. We have 98% African American population, 2% Latinx, and most of our students are from Ward 7 and Ward 8 as we intended. That's where we focused most of our community engagement. So learners will be able to come in. Once we can come in person, they'll be able to see themselves on the walls, in the books, in the classrooms, with color, with joy, and just an environment, a beautiful environment to learn in. But one of the things that I would say that I'm very proud of is, despite the fact that we are not in our building, we still are creating a joyful, culturally responsive, engaging learning environment virtually. And Erin and Lensa will talk more about that, examples of that. So we have created the culture. It's the culture that has been important to us, and it is evident in our remote learning. And so we know that this vision that we had of co-creating with families and with learners and with our coaches and staff, a place where learners really can cultivate the skills and the mindsets they're going to need to pursue their dreams. It's real, it's happening, and we're very excited about that. So I'm gonna turn it over to Erin, Lensa, and Matt to tell you, some of the highlights of what's been going on.
So like Janine said, one thing we have always been focused on is having family voice in all of our planning. And something we're really proud of is our distribution of meals and supplies for families. So we do the weekly distribution so that families don't have to come every single day to get their meals, but instead they can come one day a week. And when we started our meals, we started distribution the week before school started, so that week during the first week of school, we were able to talk to families and identify the families who didn't come. And we were actually able to make contact with every single family who didn't come and identify, like, what is your need and how can we help support you? So we came up with plans to help remove those barriers. Some families we gave different days or different times to come pick up. Other families we are actually offering delivery service to. The other thing is that our meals are all frozen. So if a family doesn't use it that week, it doesn't just go bad and get thrown away, but it lasts for a long time. Since we're doing this distribution weekly, we have our coaches, which is what we call teachers. They have been providing supplies for families. So it's all very individualized as to what that family and those learners need. So some coaches are making materials that the families can then keep at home, like they're laminating, making games, things like that. Other coaches are sending home supplies that they're asking to come back the following week. And when they bring those supplies back, then they give them a new package for the next week. So those are some of the ways that we're really meeting our families' needs.
Wanted to build on that, just highlighting sort of the unique needs of our very young learners. We are serving children, 3-year-olds to second grade. And so yes, this focus on, hands-on learning, providing opportunities away from the screen. Those so many innovative things are also happening in that space. But that has definitely been a challenge. That has been a very exciting opportunity for our coaches' creativity and also engagement with families, and just thinking about providing how important setting up the sort of learning environment at home is, and being really sensitive to how much physical materials do play a role in early childhood development. So that's definitely been both a pain point, but a challenge that we've been really creative in addressing. Also, something that's helped that is our partnership with Urban Teachers. So they are teachers that are in training. They are currently taking classes, and it's really aligned our programs. And we have received 2 additional. We were contracted to just have 4, and now we have 6. Just the way the program worked out, we are grateful for that gift, and it has really supported like small group instruction and a lot of even one-on-one instruction. So our multi-age model has also been supportive in flexing through these sort of, classroom challenges. So with the addition of additional adults, we have been able to create a very, very low child to adult ratio. So in many classrooms, it's like 1 adult to 4 children. And then in our largest classrooms, it's like 1 to 5. We have 3 adults in every classroom, 3 out of our 4 classrooms, where there's an additional adult shared in our pre-K for kindergarten classroom. So again, our multi-age model, we're leaning into that as a way to really support us as we, Matt will talk more about enrollment, but just in terms of, staying true to our model, those are 2 levers that are really supporting us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lanza. Thanks for having us forward. Yeah, I'll close it out with a little bit about enrollment and devices. I'd probably echo Jason from Girls Global, and just to mention that enrollment has probably been one of the larger pain points for schools in general. I think primarily our school, as an early childhood education school, a lot of parents are deciding to pull their children out of school or keep them out of school. And so that's definitely something that we've been working around. However, we've been putting a lot of work into it, and we have 57 learners currently with we'd love to get up to 60. So yeah, if you know anybody, please let us know. That would be great. We are also committed to making sure any family that needs access to technology, whether that's a device or internet, has it. We have put in a lot of work making sure that we are reaching out to families, making sure we are communicating with them to understand what their needs are. We've had a slight delay on Chromebooks, as you can probably imagine. There's a lot of demand, but we've definitely kind of pulled up our sleeves and gotten some refurbished Chromebooks, found tablets. So we're doing what we need to do to make sure all of our families do have that access, and we're starting to fill those gaps as we can.
Great, thank you all. Board members, any questions for the iDream team? Which I just love to say.
I'd love to hear you say it. It kind of rolls off your tongue.
It's so nice to see everyone. Thank you for this. So when you applied, and now as you've launched, your plan had been to offer a wide range of grade levels, wide grade spans, so that you might be able to invite in families with siblings. How has that been working? So of course you did not anticipate doing so in a virtual setting. So how has that been working so far, and has your theory proved in enrollment practice so far that families are choosing to enroll among those 57 families with multiple kids?
Yeah, I think it has, actually. I don't know offhand, but we do have several families with 2 or 3 siblings spanning whether it's pre-K 3 all the way through 2nd grade. And it's actually helped with
Did Matt just freeze for everybody else too?
He just froze.
While saying technology.
I'm
Ironic.
gonna say technology, right?
I was gonna say, but this is how we flow. I am happy.
Are you going to pick up for him?
Yes, I'm happy. I was just thinking the same. Matt, are you back?
Yeah.
I was,
Did
yeah, model like flexing, but go ahead. It's a smooth transition.
Oh, I didn't know that I was
The word technology.
unstable. Go for it.
No, I was saying, yes, I was thinking that the same thing, that actually our family enrollment, again, I was like thinking that you'd have the exact numbers, but in terms of the way it supported our challenge with delays in devices, we've been communicating a lot with families, and we kind of asked, you know, like, how many siblings can kind of flex with us. Some siblings who are in different classrooms, but maybe in the same, like different pre-K classrooms, like just flexed and like both went to the same classroom. And in many ways, like kind of supported families in being able to scaffold, like managing just one device rather than 2 3-year-olds on 2 devices, right? It actually was okay. And did support that family connection across classrooms, as well as really help us, you know, pivot with our delay in devices. Matt, I don't know if you wanted to add anything more to that, but.
Yeah, I just want to add, we've just been really flexible and working with individual families to like figure out their individual schedules and needs. So we have one family who has 3 pre-K kids, and we had them in different classes. And now, like Lensa said, they're all just in one class, but then they have their individual check-ins with their, you know, their individual teachers, but it just works for them and for their caregivers to just be in one class together.
Any other questions or reflections on what the Dream Team has shared? All right. Well, then I will just thank you guys again for making time this evening and sharing a little bit about what's going on. And as you can tell, we are eager to learn more, and we'll find a way to participate and come and visit in some format this fall.
Thank you. Thank you. We hope to see you soon.
Thank you all. Thanks.
Have a good evening.
All right, Brianni, our last school for the evening, which is the Sojourner Truth Team, Justin, Denise, and Ryan.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Are you able to hear me?
We are.
All right, great. So thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. I'm Justin Lessig, Executive Director at the Sojourner Truth Public Charter School. And I am joined tonight by Principal Denise Edwards and Director of Operations Ryan Abel. And we are grateful for the chance to share a little bit about how our first few weeks have been. As you might remember, our projected enrollment was 80 students across grades 6 and 7. Our ceiling was at 90. We currently have 91 students enrolled across the 2 grades. 56 are in the 6th grade and 35 are in the 7th grade. About a third of them are from Ward 5, where we are. About a quarter of them are from Ward 7, 20% from Ward 4, 10% from Ward 8, 9% from Ward 6, and 5% from Ward 1. About 20% of them come with some Montessori background, and then 80% are completely new to Montessori. When it comes to tech, we were surveying families throughout the spring and through the summer with regards to tech support. We invested pretty early on in becoming 2-to-1 and having 2 devices per student so that we could have 1 Chromebook at home and 1 at school when we were assuming that, you know, all of our students would be at school. So we started distributing Chromebooks, and in a lot of cases, hotspots. We have hotspots through T-Mobile and also through RCN. So we started distributing those directly to families a couple of weeks before school started. We started on August 31st. So we were proud of the fact that by the first day of school, we had connected a Truth device to 100% of our families. We have been really proud of how tech has gone so far. There have been, you know, the usual ups and downs. We were planning on using Zoom For example, we made the switch to Google Meet prior to the beginning of the school year. But during teacher PD, we realized connections with our Chromebooks were typically smoother through Google Meet, and so we made that switch. I think as long as we have a virtual component, tech is going to be something that we continue to always want to improve with, but overall we are really proud of what we've done so far. With family engagement, each student at Truth has a mentor teacher. Mentor teachers prior to the start of the school year were able to make direct contact with just about 95% of our students. We held virtual and also outdoor in-person goal-setting meetings with families the week before school started. We do monthly community meetings with families. We use an app called Constella as our parent portal for ongoing communication. You guys have asked some questions around like socialization in the virtual space, and that's been really important to us. And we've gotten feedback that that's really important to families as well. Myron spoke before about middle school being such an age of socialization, and that is a very Montessori concept for this age group as well. So a lot of parents have expressed interest, and so we've supported connecting the parents of kids that are in cohorts together so that they can find ways to support socialization between their kids outside of school, whether it's virtually or in person in a safe and distanced way. We do have 2 cohorts of 10 students each that are learning full-time on campus 5 days a week from 8:30 to 3:30. So of our 91 students, 20 of them are learning full-time at school, and then the remaining 71, so the vast majority are fully remote, but we do have an on-campus component. We had a team of parents, teachers, board members, and then our leadership planning for this throughout the spring and the summer. The approach and the model has gone through a lot of different iterations. Ultimately, we felt that as long as we have the capacity to safely and responsibly do in-person instruction, we wanted to do so with a group of students and families that expressed the most need for it. And so that's what we did. And we surveyed all families to see who was most interested, who felt like they had a unique need to be in person. And we were very fortunate. We felt like we had a model that would work for up to 20 students. And we had just over 20 express interest and express some justification for need. And then we did some more discussing with those families, and we were able to kind of narrow it to 20. And so those are the ones that are fully on campus. It's been completely voluntary for staff. So some have opted to be full-time virtual, and those teachers have full-time virtual tours of duty. But we do have quite a few on-campus teachers. We made the choice that any given section, so any given period, is either completely in person or it's completely virtual. And so even our on-campus teachers, they have a mix throughout the day of like, they'll teach maybe first period to 10 physical students in front of them in the classroom. But then second period, they might be teaching 17 or 18 students virtually. Third period, they might have another virtual set of students. So rather than mixing sort of, some students in the classroom, some students virtual during any given period, we do have them sort of fully separated. We do things like daily screenings at the door, masks at all times. We have what we feel is a stringent protocol with sanitization of desks, common spaces throughout the day, distancing, of course. We are fortunate to have a really beautiful outdoor courtyard space, as well as a lot of park space. So our kids have breakfast and lunch outdoors. The outdoor space is connected to Wi-Fi, so it can also be used as an outdoor classroom space. We do sort of extended recess and outdoor time as much as possible. The 2 cohorts use completely different classrooms. They transition through the hallways at different points of the day. They do overlap outdoors during breakfast and lunch, but they spend their times on opposite ends of the courtyard, again, to limit any sort of opportunity that there might be for like transmission between cohorts. So we hope to continue as long as we have the capacity to keep doing some on-campus instruction, but if and when we feel like that's no longer possible, or if teachers at any point become uncomfortable and we no longer have the capacity to do it, we feel very ready to be fully remote. Yeah, so we would, I guess that's kind of our initial updates, but we would love to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Justin. PCSB board, any questions for the Truth team?
I'm a little afraid to go on unmute in my house, but I want to commend you on kicking off this, what sounds like a really remarkable year. And thank you for talking us through this. You may have mentioned this, but in the mayhem, I may have missed it. Of the students that are on campus of the 2 pods, is it across, how many grades do you have right now in this first year?
We have 6th and 7th graders.
Okay.
And we have like mixed classrooms. So both our virtual classrooms and then our in-person classrooms are mixed with 6th and 7th graders.
And that is actually part of your initial design anyway, right?
That's part of our model, yeah, as a Montessori school, yeah.
And what plans do you have, again, apologies if I missed this, do you have to increase the size of those groups, or adjust what the dynamics are between the kind of in-classroom hybrid?
Yeah, that's a great question. We would love to have more students on campus. We know that we now have significantly more families that are interested in being on campus. From a capacity standpoint, I don't think we can really do more than the 2 cohorts, especially given the limitations of wanting to do this safely, and so wanting to keep it to just the 12, the guidance with no more than 12 individuals in a space. So while we would love to say, like, yes, we have plans to be able to bring in a 3rd cohort, to be honest, I don't think with the current staff and sort of physical limitations and wanting to be able to distance, I don't think we could really go above what we're doing now. We do, for sort of fairness and in a lot of cases equity reasons, we do want to give some opportunity to families that did not get into this first cohort. And so what we've been saying since the summer is that at the end of the first term, we're going to do sort of like a resurveying to see if there are ways that other families might be able to trade out or trade in to be able to be part of the on-campus experience. But we're also, I mean, I would feel bad if I didn't say how hard we're working on having a really wonderful virtual experience, and we're really proud of like the great stuff that's happening for those 71 students that are not on campus.
I have a question about those 71, because I know when you all were applying, one of the questions was, who are the students who are going to matriculate, and how many of them will have prior experience with Montessori? I don't think there's likely a guidebook for onboarding 6th and 7th graders to Montessori virtually. So I'd just love to understand how you're creating that on-ramp for students for whom this is new.
Yeah, and I'll kind of do an intro to this, maybe Denise, and then you could speak, I'm sure, further about it. What we really focus on is personalizing the experience. And so voice is really important to us. Students having some choice and some agency is really important. And so like those mentor conversations, they have goal setting is a super important thing for us. And so that was a culture that we were aiming to start even before the first day of school. So those goal setting meetings were really opportunities for students to meet their mentor, parents to find out who this liaison is going to kind of be between school and them. And then to start to get to know students' strengths, students' areas for growth, students' interests, and then really be able to like leverage those as we are now 3-4 weeks into the school year. So every afternoon, our students have mentor time, which is largely self-directed. And it is only probably, and Denise can confirm this, but it's really only like this week where that block of time is becoming more and more self-directed. There was a whole lot of, for lack of a better word, kind of like hand-holding through the process of this is what a goal looks like, and this is what makes it a SMART goal. And this is how we are going to log our goals for the week. And then this is how we are going to sort of self-monitor, and we're going to check in and say, well, this was my goal yesterday. This is how far I got. This is what I could have done differently. This is what I'll have to do today to do even better. And so, you know, we're works in progress where it comes to that, but our goal is, as we get into next week, week 5 and week 6, to be able to release students to even like greater lengths of time to be responsible and self-directed. Denise, do you want to add anything to that?
So just to add to that, so even before school started, we did have student orientation. So during this time, we were able to start with the onboarding process with students and families. So students were able to share like what their goals are in terms of their experience from middle school, whether it was academic, whether it was social, emotional. So we were able just to hear directly from them as to what really their hopes and dreams are for this middle school experience, and then build from there. Students also have a What I Design class. So that is also self-directed and independent, where they have the opportunity to explore their interests, you know, and what are some things that they are just curious about. And then the onboarding process like just doesn't stop because school started. So teachers are still working with students, because some students need a little bit more support than others, some are a little bit more independent. So we've also personalized that process. Teachers have also created kits. So students do have the opportunity to engage with non-digital materials that are related to what they're learning about in class. So they get kits for each unit that they are able to engage with as they are progressing through the unit. And really like in squads. So that's the mentor session time. So we've done a lot of community building and team building, really to set, you know, what the expectations are. Students had the opportunity to create their own norms as a community. So this is not something that we said you have to do X, Y, and Z. It was a part of the conversation, and students were a part of the conversation to create the community that they wanted to be a part of. And, you know, we've seen students already hold each other accountable to say like, hey, that's not one of our norms, or, you know, to support each other if, you know, students are facing some type of challenge. So we also have monthly community meetings for students. So even in that time, student voice is heard. You know, one of the things we do promote is student voice, student choice as well. So in their humanities class, they had the opportunity to select what novel they wanted to read based on the description. So we're starting lit circles. So just trying to create opportunities for students to really have their input as to, you know, what they want their middle school experience to be, and then also coming up with those norms and holding each other accountable throughout this whole onboarding process.
Yeah, and maybe the one last thing I'll add, and thank you, Denise, is just being really explicit about what Montessori is. So as students, we did a unit 0, as you know, as like a lot of schools do. And in that unit 0, our humanities teachers were talking about the importance of backing up claims with evidence and reasoning. And so we were looking at, well, what is Montessori? What is the Montessori method? Same way we were looking at who was Sojourner Truth, and why, what legacy do we as a school have to follow her lead with. And so just being really explicit about what Montessori is, and getting kids excited about being part of that.
Excellent. Well, thank you all for joining us this evening. Really appreciate hearing about what you're all doing and how you're engaging families. For all the schools that joined us this evening, just continue to be impressed by all the hard work that's gone into launching these schools. That has been many years in the making, and really value the creativity you've brought to thinking about how to serve families, sometimes in person, as a number of our schools have been able to, and just finding ways to support families, whether it be through technology, emotional supports, meals, so many different resources that you and your fellow schools are making available to families during these times. So thank you. Thanks for joining us this evening. And again, we'll look forward to visiting in some fashion this fall.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. All right. We're going to transition now to our public hearing items, in particular, starting with our public witnesses who signed up to speak this evening. Individuals have previously signed up to testify, and I will be calling upon them. As a reminder, all written public comment is available to the public on our website. If you didn't sign up by sending your name to Brianni before this meeting, you may submit your comments to public.comment@dcpcsb.org, or you may call our public comment line to leave voicemail testimony at 202-328-2660, selecting option 2. I have a number of public witnesses this evening. I'll ask you each to keep your testimony to 2 minutes, but you're certainly welcome to submit longer testimony to us in writing or via voicemail. And I'm going to begin, Brianni, with the first person on my list, who is Patricia Stamper. If you would unmute her.
I don't see Patricia Stamper.
All right. Well, I can come back to her. I'll move through my list then. Jamal Jones.
Hello. Can everybody?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good. So I will say first off, thank you, board. Thank you for the hearing. Thank you for your time. And then also like to really shout out the Social Justice School. It's actually great seeing those guys again. I will keep my testimony brief. Most of it has actually been submitted in writing, so what you will hear is an excerpt. My name is Jamal Jones. I'm currently a teacher at the Academy of Hope. And out of the 3 charter schools I've worked with, I've reported 2 of them. Each time I follow the communication and complaint procedures as listed in the charter contract, only to be met with retaliatory action. And in the spirit of trying to make a space better, you know, grass is always greener where you water it, I tried very regularly to express my feedback, concerns, suggestions, as well as attempted to collaborate and problem solve with school leaders, only to be silenced or retaliated against, something I've now experienced twice. This repeat experience, coupled with similar accounts from other teachers, that led me to conclude that the contracts under which these schools exist need to be subject to review and revision by teachers. So I'm glad that this board has opened testimony to the public, and I have no doubt that there will be many people who will actually be able to come forth and give you more input as the year rolls on. I definitely believe there'll be many more like me who will do whatever they can to try and improve their conditions for the students, only be dismissed, ignored, or ousted without any form of recourse. That said, I am requesting that the charters require teacher review and input into contracts, either by mandating like a teacher board member or having a current teacher input on the contract before submissions for review and renewals. This gives teachers a long overdue voice in the growth and development of the students that they fight and work for. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Brianni, next on the list is Giselle. Oh,
I'm sorry to interrupt. I just want to acknowledge the gentleman who spoke and say that is a very interesting idea.
Thank you, Steve. Next public witness is Giselle Estrado. Brianni, do we have her on the line?
No, she's not there.
All right. I'll go to the next on our list is Liz Koenig.
You're unmuted.
Hi, good evening. I'm Liz Koenig, a DCPS educator, member of Empower Ed, and a former charter teacher. During a Ward 7 Education Council meeting earlier this month, PCSB Executive Director Dr. Walker Davis acknowledged that this period of public comment was the main vehicle through which this board receives teacher input, and also acknowledged it is probably not the best vehicle. There are a number of reasons I agree with her, primarily that there are an incredible range of system-wide issues that charter teachers are passionate about improving that are just not appropriate for a short public comment period where follow-up is rarely seen or reported on. More concerning to me is what appears to be a lack of knowledge by this board of how many teachers justifiably fear speaking out publicly in any way because of informal or formal retaliatory action by their schools. Dr. Walker Davis stated this board does not encourage retaliation, but that is hardly enough. A start would be studying how big the problem is, an anonymous hotline to report allegations of retaliation, and requiring robust hiring and firing data from LEAs to keep them accountable to fair employment practices. I urge this board to dig more deeply into the abysmal teacher retention rates in the sector and at individual LEAs with concerning numbers. A poor teacher retention rate is the canary in the coal mine. The SBOE has undertaken in-depth work trying to understand the causes and effects of high teacher attrition, which included data from charter schools as was available. However, as that public board surveyed community members, interviewed teachers, and collected data, this board has been largely silent on the crisis of teacher attrition in the city. What value does the board place on teacher voice? At the very least, this board could require each charter school to have a teacher board member, just as they are required to have a parent board member. The board has historically focused narrowly on its role as an authorizer, doing two jobs with startling efficiency: opening new schools and closing ones deemed failing. If the board wants to move forward into dismantling systems of oppression and white supremacy to achieve truly equitable education, it needs to move away from measuring schools and students against standardized racist metrics and start caring about the people in the system, and that includes the teachers. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Koenig. Next up on the public witness list is Candace Davis.
She's unmuted.
Ms. Davis, is she unmuted?
She's unmuted.
Her screen indicates that she's still muted.
There, I think she's unmuted now.
Good evening, this is Candace Davis, and I'm a former vice principal from Ingenuity Prep, also known as IP. Ayana Belguda and I are here to remind everyone that IP leaders have not proven their ability to meet the needs of the school's community. IP has been found guilty of violating not only special education laws, but also the rights of all children by implementing abusive practices, providing bare minimum services, and neglecting the needs of at-risk students. In response to our 10 months of reporting on behalf of parents and teachers, this board and OSSE have taken several action steps, but we have not received any positive results. Granted, we know several changes have been made at IP for this current school year, but we are still concerned that student lives are at risk for two major reasons. First, we know for a fact, without a doubt, that IP leaders have not been honest to parents and this board. For example, there are several false advertisements on IP's website. IP has used one IEP for several students and just changed the names. IP has amended IEPs without following protocol. IP has suspended students without following protocol. IP leaders said their seclusion room does not exist, but they changed the location and name. IP leaders directed teachers and staff to not document certain behavior incidents. IP leaders directed teachers and staff to delete certain behavior reports on a weekly basis. And IP leaders have even directed teachers to focus on high-performing students more than low-performing students. The second reason we believe IP students are still at risk is because they have a reputation for malpractice over the years, regardless of what their academic and discipline data says. After the 2018-19 school year, it was reported that over 60% of IP staff left the school due to the same violations and harmful practices we reported last November. We met with some of the former staff and we provided you with statements and contact information to confirm this. I will allow Ayana Belguda to continue from here.
Thank you, Ms. Davis. Ms. Belguda?
She's unmuted.
I don't see her. That might be the phone number though, and it seems muted. Do you see her, Bree?
Yeah, she's allowed to speak, but she looks like she muted herself.
Ms. Boguda, are you able to unmute yourself?
Hello?
Oh,
Hello?
there we are.
Hello?
We can hear you. We can hear you now.
Also, good evening. This is Ayana Belguda. After the reported mass exodus at Ingenuity Prep in the summer of 2019, IP leaders made several new changes at the school, just like they did this year. Those changes included different structures within the SPED program, increased leadership capacity, emphasis on restorative practices and social emotional learning, new curriculum, and new professional development sessions. While these improvements sounded appropriate and justified when we interviewed for our positions in last July, we did not realize that the negative impact so many changes would make until we were hired. And we discovered there were no school-wide plan and no qualified staff leading implementation. At that point, it was too late. In an effort to prevent the same dangerous consequences in another school, we just went to know why this board believes Ingenuity Prep leaders are prepared to adequately service students and support teachers this year. What documentations have been provided after your audit in January and after our continued reports of malpractice up until last day of school? Where is the comprehensive turnaround plan that resolves the 17 complaints you received about last school year? In closing, please know that we would like to move forward from IP. We do not enjoy testifying and emailing this board. At this point, we hope you realize the only thing we have to gain is what we all claim to want, which is student safety and success above anything else. As always, we acknowledge that we do not have the answers, so we are open to whatever has been proven to work in the best interest of students and family. If IP is on the right track with an effective plan, just prove it. Otherwise, we hope you understand that we will continue to advocate for our students no matter the cost.
Thank you, Ms. Boguda. And I have one last public witness this evening. Brianni, if you could unmute Jonathan Pinnell.
He's unmuted.
Good evening to the members of the DC Public Charter School Board and staff, and members of the community at large. My name is Jonathan Pinnell, and I'm a current talent and human resources manager at Ingenuity Prep Public Charter School. I would like to take this opportunity to share with you my experiences at Ingenuity Prep since joining their team in January of 2020. Ingenuity Prep has one goal in mind: to prepare our students to succeed in college and beyond as impactful civic leaders. Driven by our 4 core values: ambitious aims, listen to lead, dedication to detail, and integrity always, Ingenuity Prep has been a place where learning is atop the highest priorities. While I am a newer staff member at IP, I am no stranger to IP. In 2013, before the school officially opened, I worked with the community engagement team along with then founder Erin and co-founder Will to spread the word about the school and their offerings. It was then at that point I fell in love with the school and what they were bringing toward it. Ingenuity's Prep commitment to a robust and high-quality education program and their students is unparalleled. And this I got an opportunity to witness when I visited a few classrooms as a part of my onboarding in January of 2020. The level of love and engagement in the classroom filled my heart. To see how many students responded to the teacher and their love for learning definitely put a smile on my face. We know that historically in Ward 8, students don't receive the same resources, quality education, or family and community support as our peers in the city, but at Ingenuity Prep, they've stepped up to provide this much needed space, and this I know, having been at the school less than a year. It's evident in their planning, and their execution, and their follow-up. Every day that I've stepped foot in IP, and even now in the virtual world of learning, I see their love, care, and passion. I understand that Ingenuity Prep is a place where all students will thrive. Another example of my experiences include when I talk to teachers and staff about the passion and is hearing the passion in their voices. At times, those conversations are very deep and they're all about our students. It's conversations just like this that have made me working at IP.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Pinnell. All right, those are all the witnesses that signed up and showed up to testify this evening. First, I'd like to thank Ms. Belguda and Ms. Davis for their continued focus and concern about Ingenuity Prep. In a letter that we sent last week, we shared all the steps that this board has taken. We also plan to continue to monitor the school as the current school year progresses. And this evening, we're now going to hear from Ingenuity Prep about how the new school year is going. For those of you unfamiliar, Ingenuity Prep is located in Ward 8 and began operating in school year 2013-14, educating students in grades pre-K3 through kindergarten. The school has since grown 1 grade each year and currently serves students in grades pre-K3 through 7. For the past 8 months and this evening, the board has heard public testimony and received community complaints about concerns raised about teaching staff's mid-year attrition, student safety, and processes for students with disabilities to receive appropriate and monitored services. So we're going to start the discussion this evening by hearing from representatives from Ingenuity Prep. Brianni, if you could please unmute those who are joining us from Ingenuity this evening. And I imagine you might all have an opening statement. Will or Peter, who'll be starting off with that?
Yeah, Tracy, Rick, this is Peter Winnick. I know that Tracy London is going to lead off if she's up.
There, I see her now. Thank you. If you state your name and introduce yourself, and then we'll go from there.
Good evening, board members. My name is Tracy London. I am a founding parent at Ingenuity Prep and a member of the school's board. Our Chief Academic Officer and our CEO will follow my brief statement. Then a panel of administrators and board members can answer your questions. We appreciate the opportunity to address issues that a few former IP members have raised at the public charter school board meetings, including just a few you heard minutes ago. The picture they have painted for less than 3 months of employment does not match what I have seen over nearly 8 years of being involved with Ingenuity Prep. From many angles, I have seen Ingenuity Prep grow, address challenges, and develop into a school that serves our neighborhood in Ward 8. To me, it feels like a family. Ingenuity Prep has been recognized for being among the District of Columbia's highest achieving schools in Ward 8 and with high populations of at-risk students. As a parent of an Ingenuity Prep student with special needs, I am very pleased with my daughter's education, and you can bet I will speak up if anything changes. I am proud to be a part of the school that listens closely to parents like me and is always working to improve. PCSB auditors and staff from the Office of the State Superintendent of Education have taken a close look at the school over the last 10 months. Ingenuity Prep has addressed the few shortcomings that were identified. We have taken some important steps to better support students, and our Chief Academic Officer, Jennifer Hampton, is here to talk about these. Jennifer?
Thank you, Tracy. Good afternoon, board. My name is Jennifer Hampton, and I've been with Ingenuity Prep since our founding year. During my tenure in education, I've also worked in schools, district and charter in Atlanta, Detroit, and Hartford, Connecticut. My journey at Ingenuity Prep really is representative of our school's emphasis on developing teachers from good to great and creating a pipeline to school leadership. In our first year, I held a pretty unconventional role for elementary school, a kindergarten master math teacher. And I found that that content designation really is what did and still does illustrate Ingenuity Prep's belief that content specialization, even from the earliest grades, is super important. I then moved from that role to an instructional coach role, then took a principal position, and now our Chief Academic Officer, serve as our Chief Academic Officer. In my time with Ingenuity Prep, as Rick said, we've grown quite a bit from 108 students serving pre-K3 through kindergarten to now serving over 750 students through 7th grade. And the thing that keeps me at Ingenuity Prep is the same thing that attracted me. 2/3 of our students are designated as at risk. Our school is intentionally located in Washington Highlands, a neighborhood in Ward 8 where our kids and families have severe needs and where our public school system has traditionally not served those needs well. Unfortunately, you all have been led to believe that Ingenuity Prep is a school that makes decisions without regard for student needs. That simply is not true. For us, we have prioritized our students from the beginning. If you look at our academic model, you'll see that kids have been at the center of our design. With each classroom, we have 2 to 3 staff members that allow for more individualized and small group instruction. At every academy, we have a principal and 2 vice principals at least, which really allows for an academic model where we're able to quickly identify and address teacher gaps and address them through weekly coaching, weekly observations, and weekly data meetings. Additionally, we have a variety of behavior support staff and also clinicians that really help us address the social emotional needs of our students. Over the last year, we've significantly improved our special education program, which serves at least 20% of our student population. We've reduced the use of our self-contained room and really increased the number of students with IEPs in our general education setting and included learning specialists in the general ed setting to support our students. I'll be honest that it was a rocky start when we first made the transition, especially in our K-2 academy. We could have done a better job providing professional development to ensure that our students and our teachers were prepared for executing the plan that we had in place. However, it is true that our students with IEPs are learning better in a more inclusive and less restrictive environment. By the end of last school year, our internal assessment showed that our students with IEPs in grades 3 through 5 grew their reading skills faster than their peers without IEPs. In each academy, we've invested in vice principal positions devoted to coaching and developing our teachers in special education, as well as being responsible for compliance. To that end, we've also added a manager position this year focused solely on special ed compliance. We have a full-time speech language pathologist and also a full-time occupational therapist on site with us this year. Transparently, we have more counselors and mental health professionals than I've ever experienced in a school, including 2 school psychologists and 2 social workers. We have additional support from the Department of Behavioral Health and from WISE, the MedStar Georgetown Center for Wellbeing in School Environments. In total, 37 positions at Ingenuity Prep are focused on special education and student support. That's nearly 30% of our staff. Every student support team member has an advanced degree and is fully licensed and certified according to OSCE's guidelines. I truly believe that our team at Ingenuity Prep has few rivals among charter schools in the city, and I invite you to see our colleagues and students at work. Now, our CEO, Will Stetzer, will close by sharing what encourages him about the year ahead.
Thanks, Jennifer. Board members, I'm Will Stetzer, Ingenuity Prep's Chief Executive Officer. As a co-founder of Ingenuity Prep for almost 10 years, I've spent my days, nights, and many weekends working to build and grow a school community focused on doing the very best we can for our students. And I'm deeply proud of our school and our students. But like every school, Ingenuity Prep has areas where we need to get better. This past school year, we had some challenges in our K-2 academy. No one is more aware of or more focused on addressing those challenges and getting better than myself, our leadership team, and our staff at Ingenuity Prep. We do this work not for ourselves, not for some personal gain, but for our students and families. Students like Miss Tracy's daughter, who we've seen grow over these 8 years from a shy 4-year-old into a confident, academically prepared, and social emotionally adept 6th grader. While there is and always will be ways we can get better, Ingenuity Prep is an excellent school. Overall, family satisfaction is high. Nearly 88% of our students returned for this school year, which historically is amongst the highest re-enrollment rates for Ward 8 schools. While public school enrollment citywide is down significantly, Ingenuity Prep is over-enrolled. We have wait lists for 6 of our 10 grades. Daily attendance so far exceeds 95%, and teachers have completed virtual home visits with 95% of families. Staff also have expressed their satisfaction with Ingenuity and improvements we've made in leadership, professional development, and program. Nearly 9 in 10 employees accepted our offers to return this year. I am also pleased that our 130-person staff and leadership team is increasingly representative of the demographics of our larger school community. 65% of our staff and 70% of our school leadership team are Black. Reflecting on how distance learning has gone at Ingenuity Prep, I'm enormously proud of our team. From teachers to operations staff to student support staff, everyone at Ingenuity Prep has been working tirelessly since March. As a blended learning school, our students already had the technology and know-how they needed to attend school virtually last spring. We had our distance learning program up within a week, and students were back to learning without missing a beat. Over the summer, nearly 150 students participated in our online summer programming, and in August, we distributed 750 Chromebooks, one for each of our students, and we ensured 100% of our families have the internet access they need, thanks in part to 75 hotspots the school provided. Even as the doors to our school building remain closed to guard against COVID-19, Ingenuity Prep is open for learning and positioned to have a strong school year. We invite each of you to drop into our classrooms on Zoom and visit us in person once we are back in the building. You will see the exceptional instruction, strong relationships, and community that Ingenuity Prep is known for. And you will see a committed and caring staff that is deeply dedicated to our students and is working every day to achieve our mission in community with all DC educators who serve at-risk students. For your questions this evening, Jennifer, Ms. Tracy, and I are joined by our board chair, Peter Winnick, and the principal of our elementary academy, Ben Johnson. Also on the call are board members Maura Marino and Patricia Martin, along with two other leaders from our executive team, Chief Financial and Operations Officer Ashante Herndon and Chief of Staff LaShandra Thornton. Again, thank you for inviting us.
Great, thank you, Will. Brianna, let's make sure that we've got the full IP lineup unmuted. And as we do that, I will open it up to our board for first questions.
Thank you all who are joining us this evening. It's great to be able to have this conversation with you, but also am looking forward to bringing all of this to a close. Just several things come to mind over the last several months, and recognizing that there is an overlap of human resources issues and other concerns. Just want to be mindful of that. So you all have outlined some of the new approaches that you're taking, but in terms of discipline and all the other issues that were just brought up this evening, can you speak to any new approaches that you all are taking? Can you provide any other additional detail to what your team is doing to mitigate some of the concerns that have been brought up in the last few months and brought up again tonight?
Sure, I'll jump in, and then given the sort of logistics, I'll pass it off to some of my colleagues after I finish. You know, I think we've been focused on making a range of changes, but I think I would highlight to some extent one, you know, a lot of the challenges that we had experienced were really localized within our K-2 Academy, and was really atypical from what we had experienced before. So while there were new things we put in place, and certainly we've made adjustments and changes, a large part of our work was really getting back to the best practices that we've experienced and we've known over the years. And so that was a core part of the work. We had gotten away from that, that hadn't been executed well. We had a number of changes, you know, that we were making around the special education front, probably too many too quickly, as Jennifer spoke to. I think we always thought it was going to be a 3-year transitional plan. Year one was going to be the implementation year, and there was going to be some challenges with that. And year two, it was going to stabilize, and we've really seen that this year. And then year three was really going to be the year it was going to maximize. And I think we've actually already seen some of the early returns on that. I'll turn it over to Jennifer if you want to add some specifics around program changes, and maybe Ben as well.
Sure. Specific to our just behavior support, I mentioned earlier that we have 3 academies within our school, and every school has a behavior support team. Last year we did some very early implementation, or it looked different a little bit across our school, but as far as restorative justice goes, and that continues. you know, this year we I spoke to some of the additional mental health support, and so there was a clinician at every grade just to support with some of the social emotional support along with the behavior support team. We too are in a virtual setting right now, and so a lot of this is just like really checking in with kids to see how they're doing, making sure that there is social emotional support that's happening in our morning meetings and community meetings, and people are available to check in with students throughout the day. But we're confident that the plans that we have at every academy that are really developmentally appropriate to the students in each academy, along with the strong instruction. So in some places where we've made some academic shifts based on what we found in our last year that maybe wasn't exactly right for students, we're already seeing our students engaging at very high levels, and we're excited about what that means and will continue to mean for academic gains this year. And I don't know if there's anything you want to add specific to 1-4.
Yeah, I'll say just a couple quick things. So I think one thing that we've really done that made a big difference is we made a shift in our response to students who are having like significant emotional experiences. And I think Jennifer and Will both spoke to the importance of adding significantly like higher numbers of social workers and clinicians, but also like our behavior support staff and our teachers. We worked a lot on really working to ensure that when students were escalated, we had the best practices in mind to calm them down, and that we had a space for them to calm down in with an adult support. And I think that made a big difference in terms of making children feel like more at home, more calm, and keeping kids in class and learning. And I think that made a huge difference over the past year.
Naomi, did you have another question, or can I go ahead? So I'd actually like to focus on teacher attrition. I don't know if you guys have seen the survey that your former teachers provided to us, but it had, I think, 14 responses of teachers that had decided to leave Ingenuity Prep. So my question one is like, if you could actually tell us the numbers from last year, how many teachers you've lost, and if you've been able to replace those teachers. And then what have you done to proactively, have you reached out to the teachers who have left? Do you do exit surveys? Like that's, I don't know if all 14 left last year, but like that's still a very high number of teachers expressing concern and leaving, even if they didn't all occur last year.
Yeah, thank you for the question. We have not seen that, so I don't have a specific thing to be able to reference. So I can speak sort of broadly to that and what we've done on that front, and then I can turn it over to LaShondra Thornton, our Chief of Staff, to just briefly maybe talk about some of the data points there and what we've done on this front. So, you know, this past school year, we had more turnover within the year than we've previously experienced. I think that's absolutely been the case. I think a large part of that probably has to do with the turnover and leadership that we saw in our K-2 Academy. I think certainly that creates some turnover there, and I think has added to staff members leaving. And so if you look at our turnover rates, again, I'll ask LaShondra for some of those numbers here in a second, but if you look at the turnover in our staff, that was largely concentrated in that K-2 Academy. And so we were not seeing that same level of turnover in our middle school, and we were not seeing that same level of turnover in our pre-K and 3-5 Academy. And so, you know, our sense is that it was really localized to some of the challenges that we were experiencing there. That's not historically been our case. We've usually had fairly strong teacher retention. We also, though, you know, I would say we hold we have really high expectations for what is accomplished and what's achieved in our classrooms, and a really high respect for our teachers. And so we provide a lot of support. We provide a lot of coaching. We have our teachers or our leaders are in classrooms every day. They're observing teachers at least once a week and doing coaching lessons and sessions with them. So we put a lot into developing them and building them as leaders and building them as teachers within our school community. And so we invest a lot on that front. We don't want to see teachers leave, because we think it's really important that we're building those relationships and building that community and building their practice over time. And so I'll turn it over to LaShondra to talk about some of the numbers if you have any of those.
But actually, before she does that, you said you know there was a larger number than usual that left last year. So I mean, it sounds like they, like you said, they were localized, but what kind of conversations have you had to eliminate that level of turnover? Is it in the hiring? Like, how are you gonna stop that kind of attrition?
Yeah, sure. LaShondra, do you want to talk to that piece? LaShondra leads our talent work organizationally, so she's best positioned to answer that.
Yeah, I can jump in here. So there's a few things that we're doing to put some things in place for this school year. So one on a hiring piece, we've added a part once we kind of shift from our talent screen to be like really transparent around like expectations for staff that comes on to IP. We've also kind of upped our onboarding process so that way folks feel like really a part of our community. This year we started like a staff buddy program, which we're like connecting folks with other kind of mentor teachers to help guide them on the process. And we have like continued to map out like what our exit interview strategy will be. We wasn't as consistent with that in the previous year to gain some of that data in order to rectify that. And so we have put some things in place to make sure that we're collecting those data trends to be able to report back out to staff. So those are just a few things that we're doing to ensure there's a stronger staff culture.
And then on the actual numbers for last year.
Yeah, so the numbers that I have right in front of me is really based on like our highly effective and effective rates. So for our instructional staff, we retain like about 93% of our highly effective and effective teachers. And for our non-instructional staff, we're right around like 90% for those who are rated highly effective and effective. Overall, our retention was just shy of 70% for the year. And so that does include some of the mid-year turnover that was previously referenced. But we're really happy about the teachers or staff in general that have stayed with us from last year to this year that were rated highly effective and effective. We think it's important to be able to keep our strongest staff.
And are you fully rehired for that 30% that you lost?
We have a few outstanding positions. We are almost fully hired.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And how many positions are outstanding?
So I believe we have, I'm counting in my head, we have 5 positions that are currently outstanding.
And are they related to SPED at all?
2 are SPED positions, yes.
This is Jim Sandman. I have a couple of questions to follow up on Saba's questions. What was the attrition rate in the K2 Academy last year, and what percentage was that of the total attrition last year?
I would have to grab those figures for you. I don't have them offhand.
And Saba asked, do you do exit interviews? Do you do exit interviews of any departing employee? And if you do you make a record of them?
We do make a record of them, but last year we did not capture we did not conduct an exit interview for every staff member that left.
What percentage did you do exit interviews of?
So our talent team transitioned mid-year. So our talent HR manager started in January. Our talent recruiter, who also helps us with this piece, started in December. So our talent team was a little bit in flux here. So it's hard to have that information, but I would say we probably conducted 60 to 70% of exit interviews.
Is it your policy to conduct exit interviews of all departing employees?
It is not a requirement, but it is something that we highly encourage our staff, and we're making it a requirement for this upcoming school year.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned your re-enrollment numbers have looked strong. What do the re-enrollment figures look like for the K2 Academy from last year to this year?
I don't have those specific numbers available. I can get them and get back to you on that number. I know anecdotally across our school community, there wasn't significant variance from one grade level to another, but I could get those exact numbers for you so that I can speak, to exact numbers.
I have one further request. Could you get us the attrition numbers for last year broken down by grade segments so that we can see what percentage of the total attrition was attributable to the K-2 Academy?
Yes, we can get that information.
Thank you.
Hi, I wanted to probe a little bit more around the student discipline policies. Last year we heard about students being restrained or secluded, and wanted to ask how have those policies evolved, and how are you addressing student discipline in this online environment?
Sure. So you heard some reference to seclusion rooms. We do, we in the past, several years ago, we implemented that practice. That has not been a practice we have used. We have, as Ben noted earlier in his in the conversation, at each academy, we do have a student support room that's staffed by a staff member that has a space outside of the room for them to be able to calm down, but it is not a seclusion room. And so that's not a practice we've been engaged in and we've used or made use of in several years. We do have, we train our staff members in how to properly restrain. We train some staff members in that, I should say, because we do not expect, all of our staff members to engage in that. So our behavior support staff is trained from CPI. We have a trainer on staff who's officially trained in those practices. We have a policy. That policy is expected to be followed by staff members. Obviously, we try a range of de-escalation techniques and strategies before we get to that point. You never want to be in the space to restrain a student. But we are also entrusted with the care and safety of 750 kids, and we think it is important that that we make sure that students are safe. And in some instances, students are either physically harmful to themselves or harmful to other students, and we need to make sure our staff are appropriately trained to be able to support in those instances, and we have a staff who's trained to do that. So that's the practices that have existed. Other suggestions to that notion are not practices that we've made use of, and certainly aren't aligned with our policies organizationally.
Thank you for that. So I am curious, what kind of discipline issues are you seeing in the online environment, and how are you addressing those?
I can speak to that. I think I'm Ben Johnson, our 1-4 principal. I think I will say discipline in a remote environment is a completely different type of experience. And I think the thing that we've found heavily is student buy-in is the key to any and all things, and trying to do any type of discipline over a computer screen is very difficult, to say the least. And so we're lucky we have some truly awesome teachers, a few who are on this call, I'm sure, listening, and they've done an amazing job of investing kids, everything from competitions to songs to just making sure every lesson is like tight and well rehearsed. We do have like a basic consequence ladder. So we do have we do a little message through the chat, then like a verbal reminder, and then if we need to, the student can be put in a breakout room with one of our behavior support specialists or another teacher or adult they have a relationship with. We actually have never, and then after that, we'll send a parent text home. And we actually have never gotten that far down the way. Usually anytime in the breakout room, there's been an opportunity to like calm down and reset a child. I think our biggest issue is like some of our younger kids like walking away from the screen, which we are working on. We do send a text to see if anybody who's home can sort of reset them and get them back oriented. But I will say it's certainly been a challenge, but honestly, our teachers have done a phenomenal job stepping up to it and making sure that things are really purposeful each day. And you guys are obviously always welcome to come and visit and see them in action.
Thank you.
Steve, did you have a question?
Yeah. So Mr. Stetzer and Mr. Winnick, you may recall about 4 years ago, the two of you hosted me on a site visit to Ingenuity Prep. I got there early. I like to watch the opening rituals at a school. I think you can often learn a lot about a school when you watch the beginning of the day, the end of the day, and lunchtime. So I got there early, and I observed a number of parents who were having tense conversations with staff members. I was too far away to tell what they were talking about, but I noticed some of the parents left with their children and others handed their children over to staff members. I didn't know how to interpret that except that it stood out. When I got home that evening, I contacted a staff person I knew at IP, and I asked that person to interpret what I was seeing. That person told me that likely what was happening was that those children were out of compliance with the dress code, and that if they were out of compliance with the dress code, they were required to be in, Mr. Stetzer, I think you just called it a seclusion room. I was so stunned by what I was hearing, I asked this person to walk me through a number of examples. And one of the examples I used, and I went back through my email to recall this specifically, was if a 3-year-old had the wrong color shoes or socks on, would she really be required to go to a seclusion room? The answer I was told was yes. I revisited this conversation with that staff person before this call and with another staff person because I did not want to publicly say anything that I had not confirmed. They confirmed that what that scenario I just described was in fact the case when I was on that site visit. Furthermore, Mr. Stetzer and Mr. Winnick, you may recall coming before this body because of a truancy notice. And one of your proposals, Mr. Stetzer, was to address the truancy notice, was to require parents in one of the lowest income parts of town, a place that has no metro stops, subway stops that is, to produce a doctor's note if their child was sick. The practical effect of it, something, by the way, nobody on the board would be required to do at any of the schools our own children attend. The practical effect of this is that you may have parents who don't have a lot of resources, who have more than one child, who would be required to get on a bus and go to an emergency room or a public health clinic to produce a doctor's note because of a bureaucratic requirement at their school. Much of what people on this board have seen and what all of us have heard with our own ears is consistent with what Candace Davis and other former teachers have said. Please explain to us why we should dismiss what they've come to us and said month after month after month, given the fact that some of what they have described has been confirmed by our own witness.
Sure, yeah, I'm happy I actually have the opportunity to address this. So let me first speak to the uniform policy. The uniform policy that you spoke to was, that was removed out of our uniform policy several years ago. That's not a practice we've engaged in several years. So we no longer have a dress code that has anything to do with shoes. We ask students to wear a uniform shirt. If they're not in uniform shirt, we have extra shirts at school, but that's not a policy that's in place anymore. It hasn't been in place for several years, dating back even, I think, more than 2 school years. I think your visit may have been almost 3 school years ago now. So that policy has been gone for quite some time. I would say second, to address the truancy piece, I think that was a great learning for us coming in front of this board. It was probably about 1.5 years, maybe 2 years ago now. We almost immediately after that looked back and reviewed those policies. We adjusted that policy within, I believe, probably within a month, 3 weeks to a month. And we set up a new structure in place where parent phone calls would be allowed to be acceptable. Parent text messages would be allowed to be acceptable on this front. So we addressed it. And that was early. That was, I think I was in front of the board. We were in front of the board about a month into my time as CEO. And so that was relatively early in my time and my experience there. And so I think it was a good opportunity to learn, from our looking at data. When we finished school when school closed in March of this past year, we had a truancy rate of 5.8%, compared to the previous year when we were in front of the board, that was at 43%. We had an attendance rate at that time of 91.6%, which was up from 88.6% the year before at that same time. And so we've made a lot of efforts and initiatives on this front, building relationships and strengthening those relationships with our families. We added last school year, we added a director of family and community engagement role for the first time organizationally. So we've, you know, I would say to that, we've learned things over time, right? We've learned things where we thought that was a good idea for some reason or another. And I think intended to be for good purposes and good uses. And as we unpack that and as we thought about that more and as we've grown as a school community, again, we have opportunities to learn and grow and get better and see that some of the things we thought were in place because, you know, maybe we had looked at another school who we admired and said, hey, that's a practice they were doing there. Let's implement that in Ingenuity Prep without thinking about our school culture and our community in a thoughtful way, are the things that evolve over time. And I'd like to think we've gotten more thoughtful as a school community. I think our families, I think if you spoke to some of our families in Ingenuity Prep and had those opportunities and we're happy to make those available to do so. And, you know, you can speak to families of our school community. I think they would say the same thing. So, you know, I will be the first to admit that we have put things in place at times that didn't make sense, that we didn't like, that weren't helpful to our kids and families. I like to think we've learned from those. I've seen adjustments we've made, and I think that's ultimately the place we've landed in.
I just have to say, I find it really disappointing that you had to learn that it is inappropriate to put a 3-year-old in a seclusion room because she has the wrong color socks on. That is a difficult one for me to. That's a difficult one for me to grasp.
Yes. So it wasn't actually it's not actually a seclusion room. It's a room staffed with a staff member of Ingenuity Prep. It's you know, the same.
Because a 3-year-old had the wrong color socks on.
Yeah. I mean, I think again, we were in a space where we reflected more on that policy organizationally and made changes to move forward for the better of our school community. Do I wish we hadn't had that policy in place in the first place? Yeah, I think in hindsight, I would say that probably wasn't the best policy to have in place. We've learned from that. We made that experience. We tried to make our school community better. At this point, you know, we think that's important to learn from the things that we've experienced and to make sure we're continuing to make our school community a better one.
I don't have any more questions.
So a question that I have, the most concerning part of the conversations over the last several months have been with respect to provision of services to students with special needs. And in light of the specific instances in which your work with particular students was found lacking and needing to be remediated, would love to better understand how that came to pass, and what processes beyond the sheer number of staff that Ms. Hampton mentioned earlier will ensure that all students and families who deserve and are legally should be receiving certain services will be getting them moving forward.
Yeah, Jennifer, do you want to speak to that, and then maybe Ben?
Yeah, so I do want to highlight again that we have vice principals of special education in every academy, and then those leaders in particular are responsible for the development of our special education teachers. So we have some, inclusion teachers as well as some self-contained teachers, but those teachers are, those leaders rather, are really making sure that services are being implemented according to a student's IEP. So they're focused on compliance. They do observations, regular observations of those teachers as they're implementing services to provide feedback to them. The best support. And so that's on the academic side, but then, we have there were places where we were contracting externally for some of our mental health support or some of our related services. And we have people in place right now, some specific to the academy, but then some school-wide counselors that are, while we're in a virtual setting, some of our students are actually coming into the building just to make sure that they're able to get specific supports and assessments that are required to meet IEP services for individual students. And so, we're logging that on an ongoing basis. Teachers and leaders at the academy level, as well as our director of student support, check those regularly. We have some compliance goals. And so we're really focused on making sure that no student is going unaddressed. And in some cases, students are getting even more than required.
I can speak a bit to what it looks like in my, I don't know if this would be helpful, but I can speak a little bit to what it looks like in my academy right now in remote learning. Would that be helpful? Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
You said yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So I will say one thing that I think is true, and I have a lot of pride for in my 1-4 teachers, and we're the ones who have the students who would have been in K2 last year as they moved to 1st, 2nd, and 3rd grade there with me. And I think one thing I have a lot of pride in is every single one of my teachers, special education or gen ed, has a mindset that it's their responsibility to serve all kids and to be there for kids. And Jennifer spoke a little bit to being thoughtful about increasing the way that we are like purposeful about our tracking of SPED compliance data. I think even beyond that, we've tried to be really purposeful about what our actual academic data looks like as well, and how we're pulling out trends in our special education data. And so one thing that's been true in remote learning is we've tried to be really purposeful in our remote learning planning about planning with our special education students in mind. And, that goes for myself, goes for our special ed vice principal, but actually everyone on my leadership team, as well as SPED teachers. And so right now, teachers are delivering services almost in a similar way as they would in person. So just like we would normally have, we have like a high functioning self-contained room with 2 of the best self-contained teachers in the city, in my opinion. I'll just give them a little shout out on here. But I also feel like students are getting pull-out support. They're getting push-in support in the same way they would in a normal group. And we've also been really purposeful in scheduling students afternoons so that they have additional time to work on goals beyond what would normally be part of a normal school day. And as a result, I honestly feel very confident in the education we're providing those students who have special needs, who are in the K2 Academy previously. I know Miss Tracy maybe wants to speak about her daughter and her experience, so I'll pass it to her.
Yes, my daughter does have an IEP, and she still gets the same amount of push-ins and pull-outs on a daily basis that is said on her IEP. She also has her OT after school every Thursday, and that's something that the OT set up after we had her evaluation for her IEP. So she's still getting the same thing that she would get if we were in school. She's getting it virtually. They push in, they pull her out in breakout rooms. They monitor her in the classes that she needs to be monitored in. And like I said, she gets after school and text message throughout the day if she needs to talk to one of the SPED teachers, or if she needs to talk to the social worker, or if she needs additional help.
Great. Ms. London, let me ask you, you've been in the community for quite some time, in the Ingenuity Prep community, did you say for eight years? Wow. Mm-hmm. And now you're on the board. I think you're a relatively new board member, is that mm-hmm. right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to, and tell me if this is wrong to assume, you're in the mix, you hear what's going on, you know when there are challenges, and you said yourself you wouldn't be shy, to paraphrase you wouldn't be shy to raise where your kids need something and they're not being addressed. Clearly something was not working at some level within the school or within the K2 Academy fall and winter last year. As you reflect on that, do you have any insights as to what wasn't working? Like we see, the handful of complaints from parents and a lot of complaints from a few staff members. So we're just trying to sort of piece together what has gone on and what advice or perspective you have.
Well, my daughter wasn't in the K2 Academy last year, but as a parent, I was at the school a lot. I was once a staff member there. I'm a board member now. My daughter has been there from the beginning. And I saw, a lot of the kids have a lot of emotions that they go through. A lot of the kids didn't want to be in school, but I think the staff handled it to the best that they could. I've been sitting where I've seen the parents come in and they drop the kids off and the kids just don't want to be there. And the staff, to my knowledge, handled that, perfectly. I don't know, during that period of time, I didn't see anything out of the ordinary. I'm not sure what parents, they've spoken to give them this information, but I've never witnessed any of what they're saying by me being at the school, and I'm at the school a lot. I've been at the school a lot since my daughter started. I'm one of those parents that's always at the school, morning, evening, dismissal, after school, all the time.
Thank you. Thank you. Other board members, questions? I can't see everyone on one screen, so I don't know if anyone has any other.
Rick,
Mm-hmm.
if there
Michelle?
are no other board member, if there are no other board member questions, I do just want to close out this conversation by reiterating or amplifying the efforts that my team will be taking as we move forward with regard to Ingenuity Prep. First, thank you, team, for coming and presenting information about how you have addressed some of the concerns that have been raised and what your school year will look like. And I just wanted to put on record for our board that there are a number of actions, as you well know, that we've already taken regarding the school, but in particular for this school year, 2020 to 2021, there are a few things that we will be doing, and that is continuing to do our school visits. So that will look different, obviously, in a virtual environment, but we will be conducting what we would call pop-in visits. And that really is to make sure that the things that we know the school has talked about putting in place are in place, and we will monitor some of the concerns that have been identified through our community complaints process, both in the 1920 school year, as well as any additional concerns that may be raised in this school year. We will also continue to monitor the implementation of the special education audit recommendations. As you know, we did conduct an audit, and we will be looking at many of the issues that were raised here in questions tonight, whether it's the seclusion, restraint, etc., and any of the turnaround goals and plans that the school has put in place. We will be monitoring the implementation of that. Also, we'll be continuing to monitor the state complaints. And as you know, the school has worked with OSSI in implementing any of the recommendations and for corrective action. And so we will continue our process of monitoring that. And then regarding the issue about staffing, I appreciate the board's questions on that. And we will continue to monitor any departures and new hires, particularly as it relates to special education staffing. And then lastly, we do have an opportunity through our oversight and monitoring to look at any of the potential triggers that might warrant an additional special education audit. And so if that is necessary, we do have the provision with our special education audit policy to do another follow-up audit if that is warranted. So I do want to just make sure that I put on record that there are steps that we will be taking to continue to monitor during the 2020-21 school year.
And Rick, can I, this is Peter,
Yes,
I don't know if you can see me. Can I just offer a couple comments in closing as well, if you'll indulge me? I know it's not early and you've got more on your agenda. I just wanted, I'm the Peter Winnick, and I've been on the board I believe every day of the school's existence, and I've been board chair for about the last 5 years. And I want to thank you all for having us in and offering us a chance to speak tonight. You know, you've heard from some of our leaders tonight. I've known them for years. I've worked with them for years. I'm proud of them. And I know that they're not capable of allowing the sort of abuse and neglect that's been alleged and that's repeatedly alleged month in and month out. They wouldn't stand for it for 1 minute. And Dr. Walker Davis, thank you for spelling out the oversight and the continuing dialogue that we'll have. We welcome it. Since the very moment this issue first arose last November, I believe, the unwavering and absolute commitment from the board of directors on down through senior leadership has been complete cooperation, total transparency with PCSB, with OSSE, all the stakeholders. We have nothing to hide. We welcome any and all of you to visit. We welcome the continuing oversight. We welcome the continuing dialogue. You know, thus far, the staff visits that were able to occur before we all shut down for COVID, by and large, didn't verify the allegations made. I think if you all had been able to continue that and we hadn't been interrupted by COVID, you know, I dare say I'm not sure we'd be here today still having this discussion. But we absolutely welcome the continuing conversation, and I think it'll lead us to a good place. So thank you.
Well, thank you all for being here this evening. As Dr. Walker Davis laid out, we do have a pretty robust set of next steps in terms of ongoing monitoring. Thank you for detailing those. And I would encourage you as part of that, that as there are changes or concerns that emerge, please be forthcoming with us and share those with us, both in the context of the monitoring, but also so that we can develop a better understanding of how you're addressing some of the concerns from last year as we move forward this fall, which I know is challenging for all schools, but in particular as you're trying to steady the ship, in particular with the K2 Academy.
Absolutely.
Excellent. All right, thank you, Ingenuity Prep team. All right, we're still not done yet with our public hearing items. So if I could, Brianna, if we could welcome Quinion Scott, and I believe we have two charter amendments to open for a public hearing, Bridges and Kingsman. I think you're muted. Thank you, and welcome to the team, another new team member.
Thank you so much. Good evening. My name is Dr. Quinion Scott, Goals Specialist of the School Quality and Accountability Team. This is a public hearing to discuss Kingsman's Academy Public Charter School's proposal to amend its charter agreement to modify its goals and academic achievement expectations. This proposal will allow the school to adopt goals specific to Kingsman's Academy Public Charter School's mission and approve competency-based academic program. Goals include targets for academic progress and achievement in reading and math, high school, college, and career readiness indicators, and student engagement. A representative from the school is available this evening to answer the board's questions.
Excellent. Who do we have joining us from the school?
This is Kelly from Kingsman. How are you?
Hi. Oh, there we go. There, I can see your K. Would you like to make any opening remarks before I ask our board if they have any questions?
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much. Good evening. My name is Kenesha Kelly, and I am the co-founder and executive director of Kingsman Academy Public Charter School. On behalf of Kingsman Academy, I thank you for the opportunity to present to you our proposed AAF goals aligned to an evidence-based approach to alternative accountability, our approved competency-based program, and our school model. Our proposed goals reflect the reality that our students are different. By design, Kingsman Academy serves students over age and undercredited, students with behavioral and emotional challenges, and students at risk for dropping out of school because of chronic absenteeism. The District of Columbia has designated over 90% of our students as at risk. 1 in 4 of our students are experiencing homelessness. Many are court involved. A significant number of our students require specialized services. Our population is highly mobile, with many students entering and exiting mid-year due to discipline and safety issues at their previous schools, short-term incarceration, or life circumstances. The majority of our students are 5 or more grade levels behind in reading and math. Because the needs of our students are different, they have not been successful in more traditional school environments. Our proposed AAF goals reflect the reality that our approach, our policies, and our practices are also different. Our unique school model is based on a public health framework, not a traditional school model. We proactively conduct needs assessments to identify root causes. We analyze data to determine patterns and trends, and develop personalized learning and intervention plans for all students. Service delivery teams work to solve problems and implement evidence-based interventions for students. We offer a range of innovative programs and flexible scheduling options. We've designed customized software systems, platforms, and tools to problem-solve identified challenges. We are committed to making sure every student has a personalized learning experience. We offer project-based learning opportunities, non-traditional learning spaces, extensive credit recovery options, community-based instruction, and anytime, anywhere learning management system, and a guaranteed and viable curriculum through our competency-based model. We are committed to holding ourselves accountable to ambitious and meaningful goals. But because our students need something different and our approach is different, our outcomes will look different than traditional schools. We have made significant progress in the areas of school culture by listening to our students, our families, and our staff. We have seen attendance rates higher than other alternative schools by thinking outside of the box to find solutions. In collaboration with national experts, we are working to close the achievement gap by implementing a school model designed to meet the needs of all students, regardless of their disability, age grade gap, at-risk status, academic history, or life circumstances. Despite our success, schools like Kingsman Academy, serving a higher percentage of students who are different, often compare poorly to schools serving more traditional populations. And because our approach has to be different, traditional accountability metrics like adjusted cohort graduation rates, in-seat attendance rates, re-enrollment rates, and proficiency rates don't tell the story of what Kingsman Academy is actually doing to serve the city's most vulnerable students. In an evidence-based approach to alternative accountability, expectations are high, but schools are not penalized for serving a high percentage of students who are different. Our proposed academic goal is aligned to our competency-based model. The goal establishes proficiency targets that reflect the student's starting point and considers a range of short cycle assessments that look at learning throughout the school year. More importantly, our academic goal holds Kingsman accountable for problem-solving barriers to achievement for students requiring intensive behavioral, clinical engagement, and health and wellness interventions. In making sure all students at an individualized pace have an opportunity to demonstrate mastery of competencies and content areas, our proposed high school completion goal allows us to create individualized graduation plans without traditional time-based graduation cohort restrictions. Our proposed college and career goal allows the school to assess multiple measures of college, career, and life readiness, including cognitive skills, metacognitive skills, financial literacy, life design, and even civic engagement. Our proposed engagement goal keeps the school accountable for engagement beyond in-seat attendance by calculating an engagement score that takes into account the student's historical attendance data, social history, and indicators such as assignments completed, scores, interactions with school platforms, time on task for credit recovery, positive behavior recognitions, and adherence to prescribed related services and MTSS interventions. Innovation thrives in freedom. In collaboration with you and PCSB staff, we have had a lot of progress. We've made a lot of progress over the past few years in improving our approach to supporting non-traditional students who need something different from us. But we still have a lot of work to do in establishing goals that reflect the school's effectiveness in serving all students, especially our most vulnerable students. We thank you for your consideration of our proposed goals and your continued support as we work to meet our mission. To answer any questions you may have, I'm joined by Zamina Hataki. She coordinates MTSS and evidence-based practices at Kingsman Academy, Rachel Gritch, our Strategic Initiatives Manager, Dr. Jody Ernst from Momentum Research, Doug Finn from Marzano Academies, Sean Duncan and Kevin Byers from Empower Learning, Steve Mesner, our board chair and board member, Maria Boyer.
Great. Thank you. I will open it up to our board for questions at this time.
Thank you all for presenting this evening and looking over the goals and how you've replaced them. This is all very interesting in terms of you navigating this through COVID. So one of the questions I had was related to your decision to remove your PARC goals and replacing them with the education functioning level goals. Why did you make that decision in terms of measuring academic achievement and growth in math and reading?
Yeah, I can speak generally about PARC and what we've seen working with our population. And I actually asked Dr. Jody Ernst to talk a little bit more about what alternative schools across the country are thinking about as we look at PARC. I think the challenge is that PARC is designed to measure grade level proficiency in reading and math. Our students are already significantly behind grade level. So automatically, we're gonna see students who are not proficient. What we have seen though is more students moving from below basic to basic as we start to close some of those age grade achievement gaps. Dr. Ernst, Jody, do you wanna provide any insight to that?
Sure. A number of things actually. So as Kenesha mentioned, if her students are coming in on average 5 years behind, even PARC, which is supposed to somewhat adjust for students' ability level, can't go down that far. And the evidence that they use for increasing a functional level is actually much more robust. And PARC is one of the measures that they're including in that scaffolding, as well as other measures such as Scantron or STAR reading. So it's not that they're not using academic assessment to assess the functional level. It's just that PARC in particular, and SBAC for that matter, any state test, doesn't have the ability to go down 5 grade levels to capture where that student is to see the kind of that should be happening.
One thing I'll add to that is in our competency-based application in the framework that we're implementing, one of the best practices is actually to look at multiple measures of assessing students to make sure that students can demonstrate mastery in different ways. We do have Doug Finn, who's our implementation specialist, who can speak more to how the Marzano model actually helps us capture better, to Jody's point, how kids are performing in reading and math in ways that PARC isn't necessarily able to. Doug, are you still on? Are you able to provide any comments?
Yes. So to Jody's point was very clear, just talking about the large range of grade levels that need to be accurately assessed to determine growth within the learning. Coming from the research side of it, looking at the idea of there should be a preponderance of evidence so that there's a more well-rounded approach to the evidence to see that growth. Using one assessment inherently has error, and Jody clarified what that error is the accuracy of the actual process of assessing students that are so low. Also the idea that it is one piece of that pile that we'll be using to use to show the growth, so that we would actually have quite a few pieces coming from the classroom through different testing procedures to verify student growth.
Thank you. This is helpful. I'm curious, so whether it's through some of the multiple measures, how do you envision being able to monitor progress toward college and career readiness?
That's the beauty of the Empower system that is being used to record the data that's there. You can see growth based off of the levels of learning that have been established, so that you can see a starting point, and then based off a period of time, the growth within that point, and everything's related to the expectations for what that student needs to be able to achieve. So it's directly connected to those learning goals.
Any other questions from the board?
I don't have any questions, but I would like to compliment and thank the Kingsman team for an exceptionally good presentation.
Thank you. We appreciate the feedback.
One question I have, less about the matter before us, but as you're now a few weeks into the school year, in particular working with the population of students who you just described, would just love any reflections on challenges and successes as you're having to execute in this environment.
Yeah, sure. We've learned a lot. We often don't refer to what we're doing now as distance learning. We actually call it a virtual school program because we realized that the same supports and services that we provided on site, we needed to go above and beyond that in the virtual environment. We're also committed to making sure at any time, anywhere, all of our students have a personalized learning environment. Our sort of virtual school plan is really built under 5 sort of parts and components. So the first is making sure that academics is personalized for each student. Kids have flexible scheduling options based on what they need or their MTSS sort of interventions. We provide targeted interventions and support. So we have just as many teachers as we have behavioral support staff doing community meetings with students in the mornings, check-in meetings throughout the school day, small group check-ins based on need. We're extremely proud of something that we started this year called community meetups. When small groups of students meet somewhere in the community with support staff, oftentimes at a restaurant or a public park, and just talk about life. It's not always about school. They're often identified areas that we need to address before students are ready to learn. Within our school model, we call this Maslow's before Marzano, meaning that we want to make sure those sort of essential needs are met so that we can make sure that kids are ready to learn. The other component is making sure that we have specifically designed instruction opportunities for our students. So making sure that playlists in our systems are personalized based on kids with special education needs. And one thing we are extremely proud of, and Rachel can talk more about this, is that every Friday we actually provide COVID testing on site for our students and our families. They cannot sort of take advantage of what we have to offer in an academic environment if they're not healthy. And we do that on site along with our food distribution. And the last thing is that all of our students have Chromebooks and hotspots. They have access to our systems and trainings and supports so they can access the services that we provide. Rachel, did you want to add anything to that? Rachel may have dropped off. One thing that we did in addition to what we're doing for our students and our families is that we needed to make sure we were taking care of staff, and their health and safety has always been our priority. So we actually partnered with a company called Forward to give all staff a membership-based preventative and health care service free of charge. So 24/7, they have access to doctors, they have access to mental health services and supports. So that they can get what they need so they can help us respond to the needs of our students and our families.
Thank you. All right, at this time, do we have any other questions for the Kingsman team? Otherwise, this will come before us for a vote at our October 19th meeting next month. Okay. Kingsman team, thank you for your preparation. Thanks for your submission. And thank you for your testimony this evening. We'll look forward to seeing you next month for the vote.
Thank you. I just want to say thank you to the PCSB staff. Erin has been absolutely amazing. I was sad to see Tanner leave, but they really helped us think and problem solve to make sure we presented something comprehensive. We definitely could not have done this without them and all of the partners out there helping us with this work. So thank you to the PCSB staff.
Thank you for that. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and now we'll be turning to the Bridges Public Charter School revised goals and academic achievement expectations.
Good evening. My name is Dr. Quinyon Scott, Goal Specialist of the School Quality and Accountability Team. This is a public hearing to discuss Bridges Public Charter Schools proposal to amend its charter agreement from its current goals and academic achievement expectations aligned to the PMF to negotiated charter goals. The proposed goals will allow the school to adopt goals specific to Bridges Public Charter Schools mission, specific population, and academic program. The proposal includes a new mission-aligned goal, early childhood reading and math goals, state assessment goals in English language arts and math, re-enrollment, and attendance goals. The proposal accounts for the diversity of the student population that the school serves, particularly the high percentage of students with special needs. A representative from the school is available this evening to answer the board questions.
Thank you. Brianni, can you unmute the school's representatives? And if you are going to speak on behalf of the school, please introduce yourselves, and if there are some opening comments you'd like to make.
Good evening.
Right. Who will be speaking on behalf of the school?
Hi, my name is Olivia Smith. I'll be speaking. We also have Kay Laster, our school principal, and Dan Wick, our data support person. So good evening. My name is Olivia Smith, and I'm the head of school. Thank you for having us here this evening. Bridges Public Charter Schools' mission is to provide an exemplary, individualized early childhood and elementary educational program that includes students with special needs. Our developmentally appropriate, family and student-centered educational approach nurtures students to expand their developmental skills in order to build a foundation for lifelong learning. Bridges is in its 16th year and was initially a preschool program exclusively. In 2012, the school gained approval and began expansion into an elementary school, and today we serve grades pre-K 3 to 5th. The demographics of the school's student population have been consistent since the school opened in 2005. 37% of our students are English language learners, 36% of our students have special needs, and 60% of our students qualify for free or reduced lunch. Bridges advocated for years and then adopted, when it was put into place by the city, the additional lottery option for entry to charter schools for students with high-level special needs. 50% of our student population with special needs have level 3 and level 4 IEPs. We felt the PMF was not accurately representing the performance of our school and worked with the PCSB to create a unique accountability plan. Together, we worked with the PCSB's team to review data sets, parameters of the assessments, and how to set goals for students. Dan Wick, our data person, will now talk about some of the specifics of that work and the plan.
Thank you, Olivia. So when we first started this process, we dug into the data and really found that Bridges had several outlier student demographic groups across special education and English language learner students. So just to give you an idea, across the sector, 78% of students in the testing cohort do not have a SPED or an L classification. However, only 35% of students at Bridges do not have a SPED or an L classification. So 65% of students do have a SPED or an L classification, and they often have overlapping needs. So we saw that there was a lot of crossover between special education and English language learner. But when we looked at the performance of Bridges students in these subgroups relative to the sector, we actually saw that Bridges students were outperforming students across the sector. So as we know, the PMF is a great tool for comparing similar schools, but just given how different Bridges student population is, we wanted to make a student-to-student comparison for these unique subgroups that Bridges serve. So we worked closely with the PCSB staff, and I want to echo the compliments to Erin, especially just for helping us think through these things. But we were able to create a weighted average metric that accounts for all these different demographic groups. So it combines the proportion of these groups at Bridges with the sector performance for each of these groups, and then adds them all together to get a weighted PARC goal, like a weighted level that Bridges must exceed in order to meet its goal that accurately reflects the demographic makeup of the school. We also looked at some NWEA map data and found that there was also a lot of low performance among students with special needs. So we created a slightly lower goal than you'll typically see in other custom goals there to account for that. So now I just want to hand it over to Ms. Kay, the principal, to talk a little bit about how this unique plan will allow us to better report on outcomes for the school.
Okay, great. Thank you, Dan. One of the ways it will allow us to really monitor what's happening with our students is that we'll be able to use authentic assessments. Many of the assessments that we were utilizing to actually gauge where our students are, that we'll actually be able to use that to target where our students need to be. We will be using NWEA, we'll be using Lab 3 for our early childhood, and these were assessments that we were currently engaged using previously. So it makes us be able to plan for our instruction because of our unique population. And it also gives us the opportunity to use the various metrics with NWEA, our F&P data, and so that we can monitor this all throughout the year to gauge how our students are doing.
Great, thank you. Board members, I'll leave it to you for questions.
Thank you for all of this. So I understand the value and kind of the role that NWEA provides to the school to understand how students are progressing throughout the year. Did you consider a summative assessment to understand, kind of more outcomes perspective on whether or not students reached academic proficiency?
We use our NWEA data in a summative manner. So because it gives us, there's a growth measure that we use to target, but we also use F&P, and we have interim assessments that we use as well as part of our curriculum. And we use those in a summative manner.
Thank you.
One question I have is looking at the goals being set out for our approval. As you think about where the school has the greatest opportunity for growth, and I mean that in the broadest sense, growth, overall developmental growth, instructional growth, are there specific populations or specific grades where you feel like there's going to be the most stretch created by the new goal structure?
That's a good question. I think that as our students, you're talking about in terms of, I think that the biggest stretch for us will be as our students transition from pre-K into the elementary piece. As we look at, we use Lab 3 in pre-K, and then in kindergarten, they then begin to take the NWEA assessment, and that's always a big jump. The other stretch is always from second grade to third grade when we look at NWEA data, because what happens is that many times students are actually listening to the test being read to them. And then when they transition to third grade where they actually have to read it themselves, that we always see a big drop in data. So in terms of that, we'll need to make sure that as we plan our instruction, that we are making sure that we are providing supports for those students, so that our data reflects that.
Great. Thank you. All right. Any other questions? Again, this will be before us for a vote at the October 19th meeting.
Another great presentation, and thanks to Erin for her support.
It's an Erin love fest.
That she was very supportive, very, very supportive.
Appreciate
That
it.
is always good to hear. Thank you guys for all of your work, and appreciate you coming before us this evening. We'll see you next month.
Thank you.
All right. With that, I'm going to close our public hearing and begin our public meeting. I would ask a motion.
Rick, can I just ask if we could have a bio break?
This is going to be pretty quick.
Is it going to be quick?
I promise you.
Okay.
Means no name.
He's so diplomatic. Okay.
I promise you. Can I get a motion to approve the board meeting agenda? Oh, Jim, I think I had a motion, but you're on mute.
I move to approve the September 21st, 2020 board meeting agenda.
Second.
All right. So I got a motion, a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Excellent. Okay. Aye and I here. Okay. All approved. We're going to turn to the consent calendar. Is there any item that any board member would need to remove for further discussion or state a recusal for? All right. If not, then can I get a motion to approve all the items on the consent calendar?
I move to approve all of the items on the consent calendar.
Music to my ears. Can I get a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right.
Aye.
Excellent. All in favor? Excellent. Is there any new business? We could just prolong this, Naomi.
No.
All right.
I move to it. Go ahead and ask.
All right. Then our meeting will come to a close. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn the September 21st, 2020 board meeting.
Second.
Thank you.
Okay, motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. All in favor. Naomi, you are relieved. Michelle, welcome. Congrats on your first board meeting.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Scott. Thank you, Erin, for the presentation.
Yes. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Awesome. Great. Thank you all, guys. See you next month.
Good night.
Bye.